Canada Day edition of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pintallaresco, and my guest is the one and only Catrina Taylor, my first guest of July. We met at Conduit, I think, of all things, or met maybe being a bit of a word there. But yeah, so we started talking. Like, you want to come on my show and make an ass of yourself? She said, yeah, sure, sign me right up. And here we are. So how you doing?
Very good. Doing good. Finally recovering from Conduit.
Well, you were so for those people wondering, what is Conduit? Just really briefly, and then we'll touch on the other important stuff.
Writer's Conduit is an annual free event for authors and those who just enjoy writing and world building to come together and learn about the craft and about the industry on Twitch.
Yeah, because there's a big Twitch industry of writers, whether people realize it or not.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a big deal and a big thing. And so I say it like that just because it's been kind of like a pleasant discovery. As a result of actually Conduit, I nearly have as many followers on Twitch now as I did on my YouTube channel. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's close, you know.
Twitch feels like home to me. I tried YouTube for a while, but Twitch feels like home to me.
It's everybody has like a different like space they belong into. I think more than anything else, I'm a unique kind of cat in the sense that I can kind of fit anywhere because I've just traveled as much as I do. But at the same time, I'm kind of in my own entity. I've had this nice balance of this is me, and yet this is me too,
Hmm.
and I'm good with both. Um, at this point, at this point, it's interesting because like this year's Conduit, like a special thanks to Sarah Berman. I would not have been involved had she not stepped up. But apparently, what I said was it had a lot of impact on a lot of people that went to my panel. So
Hmm.
I talked about the freelance mindset, and I know Sarah in particular got a big thing out of it. If you looked at her editing page now, it's very different than when she started it, right? So
I was so excited to hear that you were presenting that panel or that panel was going to be available because I don't think a whole lot of authors realize there are many options for making a living with our writing.
yeah, well, I think here's the thing, right? I just started. I make videos as well, and I do the podcast. So I do a lot of different things, but it's all storytelling. Like the base
Hmm.
skill of a writer actually translates very well into a myriad of different things.
Hmm.
And understanding that is the difference between making a living and not. I think what a lot of writers get stuck is, again, you cut up this old idea. I gotta go submit to a publisher. I gotta go get published. And I'm not saying you can't make money that way. You absolutely can. But we live in a world today where the publishing model is breaking. I'm not going to say it's broken, but it's definitely breaking. And so you got to realize, okay, what skills do I have from this, right? That can translate to money.
Hmm.
I've learned some ad copy because it's one of those really basic formula things, and it's actually really easy writing once you realize how it actually works. And it's like, wait, you get paid stupid amounts of money for this, and
Hmm.
like ad copy can be a couple. It's flash fiction. That's all
Hmm.
it really is. It's flash
Oh
fiction,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Flash fiction. So I think this is where publishing kind of has fallen behind. It's like, why would I go write 1,000 word flash fiction story where I can go write 1,000 word ad copy and make way more money doing it?
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're both following formulas. You're both like publishing like fiction is looking for a very specific kind of formula to tell a story usually, and advertising a product is also formulaic. It's
Hmm.
just what formula are you wanting to follow? And but like I said, I call me a greedy bastard. I'm not saying I don't write fiction, but I call me a greedy bastard. But it's way more money to write ads than it is to write, you know,
Hmm.
for a magazine right now. So why would I focus on writing for a magazine when it's easier work for me to go somewhere else?
Hmm. Absolutely. And I know a lot of authors don't even know that's an option to learn or to develop. Writing fiction is just a skill you develop over time. Writing nonfiction is just a skill you develop. And you develop it through time and research and effort and trial and error, just like you do writing ad copy
Yeah, exactly. It
or
doesn't.
SEO articles or a plethora of other things.
Yeah, there's just a butt ton of options out there. Like, I think the biggest lie a lot of writers tell themselves is there's no money in this. That's not true. It's just the money has gone into a lot of different directions than what it used to be. So I
Hmm.
guess it depends on which model you want to get caught up in. Now, from a creative writing standpoint, is it harder? I I guess, right? I mean, you're looking at it from a traditional model, but again, we're on Twitch, we're on Kickstarter, we're on like
Hmm.
money is definitely possible. Like again, the possibilities are ridiculous. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
just are. They just it's actually crazy how valuable those skills really are. It's just for whatever reason, a lot of writers do not see their worth.
I have been in that boat. It's imposter syndrome at its finest for many of us. Just don't think about what we really can offer, what we're really bringing to the table. And then we underprice ourselves, and the next thing we know, we're wondering why there isn't enough money in it.
Yeah, like there's that, but I think it's weird. It's imposter syndrome. It's imposter syndrome. I think a little bit, but it's also I truly believe this. Like the fear of success is
Hmm.
the biggest fear. It's not failure. Failure is a big fear too. I'm not going to diminish
Hmm.
that, but I think fear of success is actually the bigger fear a lot of creatives face because it is possible to succeed. You have to learn how. I think the very first step, and this was like I mentioned this in the panel, is you have to learn how to think like a business. A little
Hmm.
bit. Think you gotta learn how to think like that first. You can still think like an artist. Hey, I do stuff for fun. We all do.
Hmm.
But you also gotta think like a business. Like, okay, if I'm working with somebody, what's in it for me? And that sounds selfish, but it's the truth. Like
Hmm.
I'm not doing this for free.
Hmm.
Right. And that's then again, that's also a big mindset that make decision you gotta make is you're doing this. How much do you want to make doing this? If you want to make it a living, that means you got to do stuff that pays for a living, right? You can still do fun things here and there. And
Hmm.
obviously, with friends, you can undercharge, overcharge, whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
But, but you have to, again, it's that thinking, that mindset of, I am here to make a living. What am I doing today to make that living?
That's part of that comes down to recognizing you're even in business to begin with. It's hard
Yep.
to be afraid of success if you don't understand the dynamics you're actually dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I started, I didn't recognize it as a business. I should have. When my
Oh, yeah.
books hit number one, I probably would not have had my downfall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
that's the difference. Had I recognized it, I really probably would have had a longer train of number ones instead of because I would have analyzed how things worked out and what the dynamics were and used that. That's business.
yes. And you gotta look at that. Like, okay, so one of my works is an epic poetry style Alice in Wonderland. Right now, this is like a business decision. Now, during the pandemic, when trying to figure this stuff out, I digitally released this, and only just a digital release. I know the moment I go to a physical release, that book's going to do a lot better because it's Alice in Wonderland, and people love physical copies of books still. That book will do way better the moment I do it. All right. So now my goal is to get to that stage, that face on the map. I might be it might take into early next year to get there, but I will get there. And when I get there, it's going to mean that I'm now looking at it from a creative business. And once that's released and I do all the wonderful investment of things I need to invest in, then I'm going to really see how this all magically works out. Because I got enough books for variety, but I'm like, okay, now let's see how this really does. Let's see where this really goes. Because it's the only like even creative writing. Like if you look at Amazon, you look at all these different options. There's one way to do that too. But again, it's recognizing the fact that okay, I'm in the business of getting more people to read my shit. So what am I doing? How am I saying it? Where am I going with it? Right? Who is responding to my work? Right? I can't hear you.
It's important to know that and to monitor that. And I apologize, I hit mute.
Yes, it's okay.
The house is quite alive behind me, just trying to make sure I'm not contributing more than
It's all
necessary.
good. I'm gonna start. Don't worry about it. The beautiful thing about this show, the way I put this show together, is it allows a certain degree of rawness. I don't. It's professional ish because I rather have a little sense of authenticity to it. I don't necessarily need it to be perfect. Now, there are audio engineers that will be listening to this episode and going, "Why did you do that?" And the answer is twofold. One, you go to. I'm in a coffee shop right now. You're at home.
Hmm.
Reality of the situation is, you got a life. I got a life. Things are happening all around us.
That is true.
So, would it be less than honest? Would it be less than honest? I always feel there's a certain disingenuousness to a fully sterile environment. It doesn't feel real, right? It feels polished, but doesn't really necessarily feel real.
Hmm.
Now, if someone were to come to me and offer me a drink, it would add a dimension to this podcast that wouldn't otherwise have existed anywhere else. Sound engineer dies a little on the inside, but the actual storyteller actually goes, and
That's
I
true.
learned this, a little chaos actually makes it feel realer. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to move forward. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. And
Hmm.
that's maybe one of the biggest lessons I've learned in the last few years. Just keep doing shit. It doesn't, you
Hmm.
get good by default if you just keep doing shit. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. And sitting still is usually the getting comfortable. Sitting still is usually not a
Rule
good
8.
place to be.
That's rule 8. I have 10 rules to success. The eighth rule is stay uncomfortable.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear the rest of them.
Okay, rule 1, show up. I know that one, I always think that's the dumbest rule, but honest to God, it's amazing. As you get older, you realize like that is the most important thing. It's literally the most important thing. You can
Hmm.
screw up, but if you show up, you get points. It doesn't matter,
Hmm.
right? Which leads to rule 2, do your shit. So, right, rule 3 is the cliche, don't quit. It's the cliche, but it works. So, rule
It's
4,
important.
yeah, rule 4, the rest is rain. Are you a Star Trek fan?
Love Star Trek.
Okay, so here's one of my favorite Captain Picard quotes. He said it to Data after Data was trying to figure out why he lost this game to this one guy. Stratagem, it was right. He goes,
Hmm.
Mr. Data, it is possible to do absolutely everything correctly and still lose.
Hmm.
You have to accept, like, life is inherently unfair. Me trying to predict where the rain is going to fall is madness, right? Weathermen are have the craziest job in the world. If you really sit there and think about it, this is going to happen at this time. It's like, no, it's not. Sometimes, like, I live in Calgary. God laughs at that whole concept. The weatherman here is the most inaccurate dude on the planet,
Hmm.
right? The guy that's got the easiest job is the guy that lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's sunny. I mean, that's his job for, like, it's the
Hmm.
easiest job in the world. So I say it like that because it's like that whole idea of predicting where the rains fall. What you're going to put out there to succeed? That's impossible. Life's inherently unfair. You can do
Hmm.
everything right and still screw up.
Hmm.
So then, therefore, uh, you're right. The rest is rain. You have no control over the result, and you must accept that. Other than doing the very best you can to achieve a result, which leads to rule 5: get the fuck out of your way. When you do succeed, this is the thing. I got this. The show has won an award. I've been nominated for Ballast and got nominated for an award every time and that's great. I don't. It's weird. I don't value awards the same way I once did, but I do realize that it's a recognition that I'm doing something right in the world. But I don't
Hmm.
necessarily think they're not necessary to me. If that makes sense, it's like I don't. I appreciate them, but I don't
Hmm.
need them. So I don't need that validation. I've had it. I don't need it anymore. So I say it like this to say like this. When you do succeed, it's really important to have a little gut check. How did I get here? What do I do well? What can get in the way of me coming back?
Hmm.
Right? And especially the last one. Now, sometimes you can't avoid your weaknesses, but what you can do is you can embrace them or minimize their contact with, like, for example, me. I shouldn't stream very much. I finally started watching The Boys last night for the first
Hmm.
time. Now, I've read the comics, so it wasn't like a surprise to me.
Hmm.
But it's good, and I'm not surprised because the comic was really good too.
Mhm.
So I watched a lot of it. Now I might, because it's the holiday weekend, I might stream a little bit more this week. It's one of the few weekends of the year I can do that, and it's not a huge deal.
Mhm.
I can't keep in that position though. So when this is over, when this is actually over, this weekend's over, I put it away. I'm one of those guys that gets sucked into stuff and really can get sucked into stuff. So knowing this, I have to pick and choose where I jump in all the way. So again, self gut check. You got your own gut checks too. So what are your weaknesses? Right? Because those are the things that can prevent you from coming back to that pinnacle you want to get to. Which leads to rule 6. Be grateful, be charitable. Always say thank you. Always be gracious to people around you. Everybody's trying to move up. Help everybody you can. You're helping yourself, ironically, doing that. Rule 7, no excuses. Doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter why it doesn't work. It doesn't matter. It's not important. It's just, it is
Mhm.
or it is. Just recognize it, move on. Rule 8, stay uncomfortable. Rule 9, this is from the pandemic. Do not fall in love with outcomes. Just don't. Be detached from all outcomes. If you can do that, you will keep an open mind about everything around you. And rule 10, if all else fails, if you're not sure what to do, if all else fails, what's the most fun? And have fun. What do you think?
I like that. I think those are great.
Yeah.
They're practical, easy to apply to almost anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And they make sense. Like
Mhm.
they legitimately make sense. Most people fail because of rules 1 and 3.
Mhm.
Most people fail because of rules 1 and 3.
Yeah. If
Um,
if you don't show up to do the thing, it doesn't. The rest
it's
of it won't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And rule 3, you quit. Now, I should say this: quitting does get a little bit. Um, it's not always wrong to quit, but you never should quit because it's hard. You should quit because it sucks. There's a
Mhm.
difference. There's a huge
Huge
difference.
difference.
Yeah, if it sucks, just walk. It's okay.
Yeah, nobody needs burnout. Nobody needs the stress. You will find something that you enjoy that works. It
And
just might
if I
not be
were to,
that.
and you actually, I'll have to figure it out. But you might have given me an 11th rule, which is this: all things are negotiable.
Mhm.
All things, right? So if that's the case, your worth is always in negotiation. Your value is always in negotiation. And remember that. Because what someone says, this is how it's going to be. No, it really doesn't. You don't have to cooperate. I'm
Mhm.
40. I've learned about something very valuable in that I don't really have to give a shit about what anybody else thinks,
Mhm.
right? There's actually,
Exactly.
I don't. People can say you're crazy, you're wrong, you're selfish, you're this, you're that, the other thing. I can still give them a big giant finger and just keep doing it anyway. I'll do what I want,
Mhm.
right? If you want me to change course and if I really am set to this, you're going to have to give me a reason to do so. I'm a reasonable man,
Mhm.
right? I'm a reasonable man, but you're going to have to give me a reason. I'm not going to play by what you value me as my worth is. I'm going to
Mhm.
play at what I think my worth is. And I'm going to fight for that worth every single day. And I'm going to do it my way. And
Mhm.
if you don't like it, that's okay. I don't need to. And that's how I
Mhm.
look at it.
If everybody knew that it was totally okay to walk away from whatever it is you're dealing with, they would understand the freedom of being able to truly make their own decisions.
Yes. And that's something like, again, looking at the eyes of like, are you in the States? Just to make sure I
I
understand.
am.
Okay, I'm in Canada. Where we see COVID and where you see COVID are two very different places,
Mhm.
right? I wish we saw a little bit more like you, because again, I've seen everything that kind of happened in Israel and a few other places, and kind of like we're still following that script. I already know where the script ends
Mhm.
because I've seen it. Because again, the script's been written. You can literally look around the world and see where the
Mhm.
script goes. The rest of the world has moved on, not Canada, which is an interesting space to be in. And I look at that and go, why are we not, like, again, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that the virus isn't serious. I'm not saying you shouldn't do what you feel is right and how to protect yourself. But I think the idea
Mhm.
of trying to force people to go down a particular path is foolish. And we're still caught up in that somewhat up here. And it creates a very uniform track mind. And I kind of think to myself, why is this so uniform? Right?
Mhm.
Whatever you choose to do, I really don't need to know what you're doing or why you're doing it. It doesn't matter. You're doing what you feel is the right thing to do. Beyond that, really, it's not my business. I don't really necessarily need to know. Right.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I'm at with actually practically every decision anybody else made. I'm not in your shoes. I don't
Mhm.
know what's right for you. I don't know if you're like, heck, even if you're making a mistake, say you're making a mistake. Maybe I'm making a mistake. It's possible. I mean, I should be free to make those mistakes.
Mhm. 100%.
It's the only way I'm going to learn.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I'm going to resent the inability to make those mistakes. It's an ironic thing. The more freedom you give a system, the more it actually tends to veer towards a certain direction anyway.
Mhm.
But the variation allowed actually allows that to be more harmonious. If you try to force things into one direction, people rebel.
Mhm. 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Because we're given freedom of will for a reason. We're here to use it. And the best way
exactly.
to exercise it is to own your situation and make your decisions based on knowledge and experience.
Yes.
Experience being the key. You're going to make mistakes. That's how you learn. They're not Mistakes aren't failures. Failures are learning opportunities, the ability to grow, the ability to develop a new strategy that will reach your goal
Yeah,
instead of
absolutely.
sticking with what didn't work the way you wanted it to.
Well, it comes down to like my rule 9: don't be detached from all outcomes. If you can be detached from all outcomes, it's almost okay to get your ass kicked. Right? If it doesn't, like it almost is, because
Mhm,
assuming it doesn't kill you, assuming it doesn't kill you, you'll learn, you'll be stronger for it.
mhm,
If you're so caught up in an idea, though, you'll never evolve beyond that idea, no matter how many times you get your ass kicked.
mhm,
Right? Because it's one of the most, I think, again, something I've learned in this time. Right? Be detached from all outcomes, and at all costs, because the idea might even be good, but don't buy into it so much that you think it's going to work no matter what.
mhm,
And because if you do, once you do that, you're open to being bamboozled, like, because you'll never see it any other way.
mhm. This is true.
Yeah,
No point in getting stuck.
exactly.
Worse
So
when you're sticking yourself, getting
yeah,
your doing it to yourself.
yeah, and also, well, we all have a little bit of that self-destructive, vindictive edge inside us. It's just part of who we are. But I mean, my imperfections are my voice. Help make the voice what it is. And
Mhm,
sometimes those imperfect, I kind of equate it to sea salt. Sea salt, when you look at it under a microscope, it's got all these little flaws in it. Like, it doesn't look perfect. Doesn't look. Ironically enough, if you compare it to, say, like iodized salt, iodized salt looks like perfect. You look at it under a microscope, it looks absolutely freaking perfect.
mhm,
The sea salt's actually healthier than the iodized salt.
mhm,
And the reason why is because of those imperfections.
mhm,
Those imperfections allow for change and adaptability and growth.
mhm,
Perfection's death, because what perfection actually is the inability to change. And that should be avoided at all costs. When I
absolutely.
stop changing, I'm in the grave. That's
Mhm.
all there is to it. Like, when I stop changing, I'm in the grave.
A lot of times people just don't recognize that that's what growth is. It's
Yeah,
an openness to change and accepting that that's how you reach that growth is by exacting change. And it might be minor, and a lot of times change can happen without you even realizing it's happening.
oh, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. Life is change. That's what life actually is. Life is nothing else. It is change. I think even beyond death, change is the true universal constant.
Hmm.
There might come a world where there is no more death. That is actually a possibility, right? I'm not saying it's likely, because after all, what better way to do change than death itself? But change is the real constant. It's how we
Hmm.
learn, it's how we grow, it's how we evolve. That also means we will never be perfect. And I thought about that. It's like how I believe in God. I don't know if you do. I do believe in God. But I think you know what? It's much more interesting to make a world where it isn't perfect. Because when a world isn't perfect, change, that means the world will always change and always be different. And what a wonderful thing. That means it's never the same. It's never the same sunrise or sunset. It's never the same people. You're never the same. Every single day you're a little different. And that's a
Hmm.
wonderful thing, I think.
I would have to agree, and I do also believe in God. Um, and we don't know what the future holds for any of us, but we do know that the creation around us brings unique blessings all the time. And like you said, they change. We have colors in the fall from the leaves, and we have fresh greens in the spring. And each of these changes bring a different perspective and a different pleasure and a different blessing to the way we look at our world. And accepting that if that's going to happen with the world around us, it's going to happen with us. And it does in every way.
Yes. I will get older,
Hmm.
hopefully wiser. Hopefully. Some ways I will, some ways I won't. Because here's the thing about getting older and caring less. You become more okay with your flaws too, and that's not always a good thing. But it can. But it also is good to like. It's about acceptance of who you are too. I realize that there's a very fine line. I'm still always going to be a little bit of a kid at heart. That will never change. I refuse.
That's
That
good.
also, yeah, but also that does mean I'm going to do silly shit until I'm in the grave. That's just what that means. That totally is what that means. And I gotta accept the fact that there are just ways I'm wired, the way I do things. I'm going to make some of the same stupid mistakes over and over and over again, right?
Hmm.
Right? And I cannot help but laugh at myself a little bit at that because it means because sometimes I don't know about you. Sometimes I make mistakes like I really should know better than this. I really
Hmm.
should, but I don't,
Hmm.
and I still make this mistake anyway.
Hmm.
And I realize that as a whole, that's okay. But it also means that when I get older, I'm gonna have to work harder to keep changing. Right?
Hmm.
It's right. I'm gonna have to work harder, not easier, because it's easy again. Once you get set in your ways, it's easy,
Hmm.
right? And then you stop changing, and then when you're not changing, you're just slowly dying. That's what it is.
And I like your don't get comfortable because too comfortable and you don't try to improve, too comfortable and you don't set your goals too high. You just maintain. And it's that lack of comfort, that adventure into new challenges that helps us to reach new levels and create opportunities where we didn't know they could be created and provides a path forward. If you're too
Mhm.
comfortable, you're just going to stick with it every day and call it a day.
Yeah. No, it's one of those situations where you realize and recognize like there's discomfort's where the magic happens, and that's just it, right? It's one of those really hard things to accept is
Hmm.
wait, you mean being comfortable in my really soft space and soft place is
Hmm.
going to, but I want to be comfortable. It's like, yeah, we all kind of do. And again, for little times, hey, even God rested, right? It's one of those little
Hmm.
truths, right? Even God rested. But it's one of those situations where you got to look at it and go, okay, sooner or later I gotta get my lazy ass up, or I just am a
Right.
lazy, right? Or I just am a lazy ass, you know. And that's just being like calling yourself on your
Hmm.
calling yourself on your honesty, right? You cannot be you cannot be you cannot allow yourself to be again, you can't stay still, because if you stay still too long,
Mm-hmm.
game's over.
100%. And you learn that in business for sure. And entrepreneurs, and that's the best way I can describe myself, is
Yes.
someone who goes out to publish and produce. We tend to look at it as a creative venture first and then a business. I noticed more success when my mindset shifted, just like you were describing, to where's the value of your time? Where's the value of what you're doing? Recognize what you are actually bringing to the table and
Yeah.
then attribute it accordingly. Until you recognize that and then treat your author business as a business. I know you have a different perspective. And the mindset should be very similar to a freelancer, because if for anybody who's doing the work on their own is brings something unique to the table and it has value, or you wouldn't be having the discussions you're having with people.
Exactly. No, no. This is so. In my case, I am. Man, this is gonna sound so freaking egotistical. I'm a creative Renaissance man. I write books. I draw. I do videos. I do audio. I do all
Mhm,
kinds of different things. Creatively speaking, there's not. There's a lot of, like, in terms of actual creating mediums.
mhm,
I can do a lot of different things, and I do a lot of them fairly well. I'm at least competent, right? I'm at least competent, and then a couple of them I'm great,
mhm,
right? And all right, so that's where that's how I would describe it.
mhm,
I can make so there's so much value in that, and what I find, like, when you get started is you realize that you're with a lot of people who don't see it,
mhm,
right? You just don't see it, and you have to move. They're great to get started with, but at some point you have to walk away from them,
mhm.
right? You have to, because what you realize is that they will never change,
Right.
because they've already made a decision what their value is, right? That's
Mhm,
that's it. That's all there is to it. It's not anything else. It's not the fact that I'm doing what they're doing or they're doing what they're doing. Again, it's about priorities too, to some degree, and I get that too. Like, not everybody has the luxury to jump in quickly. Sometimes you
mhm,
have to move over time too, and I get that as well. But
mhm,
sooner or later, you got to make the decision. Well, this is what I'm doing. How can I get where I really want to go? Which is,
mhm,
okay, if I'm a small publisher, how do I get into the bookstores, or how do I get into the environment where my shit's going to get read? Right?
mhm,
And even as an author, that's what you got. That's how you got to think about it. It's like, okay, I can write
mhm,
something that's awesome and made of cheese, but where am I going to find the people to read it? Let's go to my Alice in Wonderland series, for example. Do you know
mhm,
where I should actually be hitting? I shouldn't necessarily hit, I should hit the bookstore, yes. But you know where else I should be hitting? Theaters, theater kids, colleges, universities. Why?
mhm.
They take this shit,
100%.
right? So why would I do a book launch in a bookstore when I should probably do a book launch in a theater?
That's a matter of knowing your audience, knowing
Yes.
who you need to connect with.
Yeah.
There are plenty of authors who do online launches, and that's great. There are plenty of authors who do bookstore launches, and that's great. But if you're writing fantasy, sci-fi, diving into, like you said, uh, Lewis Carroll, anything pretty much, um, you're looking at the potential to reach more avid participants in the
Hmm.
launch. You'll reach people at a launch or at an event without question, any event. But if you hit the right target, if you hit the right involved group, you're
Yes.
going to get more results faster. You're going to make better connections that are going to last. You're going to have readers that come looking for you, and that makes such a difference for any book, for
Yes.
anything that you are producing. If you are a nonfiction writer creating a gardening book, you should be talking to nurseries and sit down with your book at a table at nurseries. Discuss some of the things that you go over. Discuss the points, action points that
Or
are core of your book. People are going to
or
want to know.
or do a demonstration or a lesson in that environment, because
Mm-hmm.
that will go a long way to get people
Mm-hmm.
invested in you. Right? It's just how you go. And you got to treat these things. So again, I'm thinking my Alice. That's what I'm going to do there. I have a graphic novel thing called Lights Out, what I'm actually writing and drawing, and it terrifies me because I'm drawing this, and because it's not something I ever consider. Again, staying uncomfortable. Hey, I'm doing my
Mm-hmm.
first graphic novella illustrated story. Okay, that's scary shit, but also in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So, am I going to launch this at a bookstore?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Comic store?
Mm-hmm.
Better, but maybe even not there. Maybe where I'm going to go instead is I might look at a convention and say, now here's where I should be launching it,
Mm-hmm.
because here's where my readers are,
Okay.
right? Like, for example, I'm a big Japanese light novel fan. I say I influence a lot of my works. So guess what I should be doing? Anime conventions, because my
That's
books
right.
are a lot like that. So
Mm-hmm.
why would I avoid that environment? I should go to that environment, right? Now, comics conventions are my second choice because good comic conventions are also in my thing. And the
Mm-hmm.
bookstore is third on my list. It's not one, it's three.
Mm-hmm.
And
Just
everybody, and sorry,
no. Go ahead. I was.
and for anybody listening and watching this, yes, every book you do has a subject matter that matters, right? So, for example, I have a friend of mine. She did a 80s and serial killer 80s rock thing. So you know what she did? She went to a bar and did an 80s launch. I thought it was a really brilliant thing. But
Mm-hmm.
what
Uh-oh.
she really does is brilliant. Did you hear me,
Mm-hmm.
or did you? Yeah. So yeah, or just
Um,
freeze on your.
you had paused for a moment on me, and
Okay.
then you came back. It only lasted a moment.
Okay. So yes. See again, live folks, trained
Mm-hmm.
professionals here, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, um, but this is the thing, like what she did there was brilliant. But what she's doing, like in terms of how she's personalizing these things and sending them out all over local in the local area,
Mm-hmm.
that is doing her a world of good. Will she hit a bestseller list? No. Does she care? Probably not. I wouldn't care about that. Like it's not. That's not necessarily the goal.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to find your audience. Do I care if I get a 5,000 readers just randomly or on a bestseller? No, I don't. I still got 5,000 readers. I don't care. Or
Mm-hmm.
50,000 or 100. It doesn't matter what the number is. I don't care how I got them. I don't care if I'm getting recognized for it. I care about the fact that I'm getting paid for this. That's what I care about. The rest of it's nice. It's just nice.
Oh yeah, and it makes such a difference when you are recognizing where it should be.
Yes.
I once wrote an article about aspiring to mediocrity.
Yes. Ooh.
Because it wasn't about hitting bestseller lists, it was about paying for the bills for my kids,
Yeah.
making sure that my family had what they needed. As long as I had that and the time to do what I needed to do, I was fine. My kids are older. I can look at higher numbers, but it was more about the time. So you put in enough effort to get to where you wanted to be. That was all I needed. The bestseller, yes, I've hit bestseller, but it wasn't because that's what I needed to do. I haven't hit a major list, not really something I have pursued. I had more important priorities.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, again, we're saying this, it
Mhm.
doesn't list are nice. And they can be a good part of your business goal. Hey,
Exactly.
they can be, but it's not every business goal. And it doesn't
Exactly.
necessarily need to be your business goal. And no, we haven't even talked about Kickstarter or Unbound or any of the other online platforms that you can actually launch because they're also very lucrative, but you're
Hmm.
never going to get necessarily an award. rewards for any of these things. Although you might get TV deals, Kickstarters, it's notorious for that. You can actually get those things there. So because you literally show your numbers to the world what your audience is.
Exactly.
So
Know
you
your
get them,
stuff,
yeah,
leverage what you know, and take advantage of new opportunities.
yep. And studios are again, the demand for content. This is the last, maybe the last business, and we'll get a little bit more about you before we wrap up. Content demand is infinite. It's
Hmm.
legitimately infinite, or very close to it. So if the content demand is infinite, you'll never run. There's always going to be a demand for new material, always.
Hmm.
So it's harder with traditional publishing to get a quantifiable measurement of the audience because the audience is so decentralized now,
Hmm.
right? That doesn't mean there isn't value in traditional. That doesn't mean there isn't value in some of those things. But to say that Simon and Schuster knows how to hit a television market would
Hmm.
be disingenuous at this point in the ball game. That doesn't say there
Hmm.
aren't connections, but they don't necessarily get it,
It's not the
right?
same.
No. So, or that say Penguin Publishing understands the value. I think like I look at like a company like Daw Books and look at some of the properties they have. I'm like, okay, even the not so obvious ones, right?
Hmm.
Even the obvious ones like Pat Rothfuss, throwing them out of the equation for just a second. You have some very interesting options there. I look at a guy like Gerald Brand, for example. He's got like these little cyberpunk futuristic series. That could
Hmm.
be a fun little movie series.
Oh, for sure.
And the fact that maybe his agent's shopping around for it, maybe it's not.
Hmm.
But the fact that if I were him, I'd be maybe pursuing that a little bit more aggressively. And yes, Gerald, if you are listening to this, yes, this is, yeah, buddy, you could, yeah, you
Hmm.
really could, right? And that's the thing, right? You have to think in those terms. It's not just the fact that you're making content for one medium; you're making content potentially for a bunch of mediums with one idea. And that's the other thing. That's the last thing is one idea can go a million different ways.
Hmm.
So if you're really smart about it, one really good idea is all you need. Now, building that audience for it, that's a struggle. But the idea, oh no, it's totally there.
Hmm. Absolutely. When you are bringing an idea to life, there are options that you can look around and develop that a lot of people aren't aware are available these days because they did get themselves stuck in the traditional model. The ones who don't find things like Kickstarter and find things like uh, the other name that just escaped me because of course it did.
Unbound,
I think that was the other one I was thinking of.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, you find these options are out there to allow you to make things that are going to take an investment a reality without it having to come just straight from you and to show people are interested in whatever ideas are out there. You will find interest. You will find most cases, you just have to look.
Hmm.
Whether you are a traditionally published author with a great series or you're an indie who actually handles it professionally as opposed to just putting out your first draft. um, the ideas are there. People are going to appreciate it. And like you said, content is endless. So these ideas are notoriously sought after by people who, for whatever reason, aren't doing them themselves.
Yes.
So
Well, not everybody can do them themselves either. Well, I should rephrase that. It's not again. It comes down to priorities, right?
exactly.
Some people may have different priorities or different loves and different passions, and you got to respect that.
Hmm.
Honestly, looking at someone like, for example, that has like a trade as a job, like a plumber,
Hmm.
I respect that, right?
Hmm.
That's a priority. That's a priority. That's a very valuable, useful skill,
Oh yeah,
right? Or useful
absolutely.
skills, and someone that prioritizes learning something about valuable. that valuable into the world and saying, this is what I want to do for a living. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, it's admirable. It's just,
Hmm.
it's a different passion. There, right? It's a different way of expressing those passions. And there's not, again,
Hmm.
just more one way to skin a cat. It's not just me, you know.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's not just my way of doing things. Sometimes I think otherwise, but you know, it is what it is. Again, I do have an ego, and you know, it can get me into trouble sometimes, but it also can save you a little bit too. So every once in a while as well. Going back to maybe my new on 11th rule: everything is a negotiation, and you don't have to cooperate. That's your ego speaking somewhat
It
too.
is.
You're right, but your ego's right. There, to
It's
some degree.
also, it can be. It's a good indicator for your own mental and physical health because it's if something is urging you in a different direction, there's a reason for it. Even if you don't recognize what that reason is right away, there's a reason for it. And your perception often identifies these issues before your conscious mind does. You get those, I think I'm worth more than that feeling and walk away and find out this person is incredibly hard to work with after the fact. And you realize, yeah, I was worth more than that.
Oh, I learned that. Like I said, I mentioned in in the like my first most serious client. Unfortunately, they were a friend, but they were a bad client, just based on just certain habits they had, and I picked up on them quickly. It's like nope, and nope, and I don't think they're serious. And
Hmm.
it's funny too because I can speak to this after the fact. I did help put together their final product, and they used my rough draft, not my final draft of it, for their Kickstarter because I left in the middle. I left after I realized I didn't think they were serious about it. The thing I get, like, yeah, they made their funding, but I also know this too deep down on the inside. I know this. They left money on the table, like a lot of money on the table, and more than I think they realized. That if they hadn't just done, and I say it's not just from an ego
Hmm.
standpoint, just also just from I can see the missed opportunities. Some of it was
Hmm.
me. Some of it was me. I'm not even going to say like this. I'm completely innocent here, but I mean some of that's experience. But some of it's just like, why didn't we just do a couple of these things? Like, why didn't we?
Hmm.
Right? Because you'll never know how much you could have made. So as far as I'm concerned, it's like, yeah, you succeeded, but at the same time, you failed too because you could have had a lot more out of this.
Hmm. Yeah, a Kickstarter is one of those things you either go into it with the intention of achieving a goal and offering great value, which means learning the platform. And I've not done a Kickstarter specifically because I don't have the current bandwidth to accomplish the learning curve. But that doesn't mean I won't do it. You know what I mean? It just means
The right
all
time.
things in time. Hmm.
Yeah, the right time. I get that. No, the only thing I would say about Kickstarter to people that are serious about it is, yeah, there's a learning curve for sure. But it's like anything, it's not even about value, it's about service.
Hmm.
That's what's really about. Like, what your job is to best serve your audience. That
Hmm.
I mean, again, going back to the business end of it, we're a customer service based business. That's
Hmm.
what we are. And anyone who wants to say otherwise, there's a business in now. Our customers can be businesses as well. We can be B2B or B2C, but
Hmm.
we that's what we are. Like, that's what we legitimately, honestly are. And if we want to be an entrepreneur, that's that's what we are. We are customers. It's not value, although value it can be valuable in the right, again, in certain environments. It's service,
Hmm.
right? It's the customer service that comes along with doing things. That's
Hmm.
where that's the difference between real success and real, like,
Hmm.
failure, because it's not the product they're going to remember. It's going to be the feeling they had from getting that product. That's what's
Hmm.
really about. That's service. That's
Mhm.
service. It's not. Now, values, again, to some degree, is important, right? You got to recognize who your audience is and what they do value. But at the end of the day, it's service. That's it. If you have good service, you'll have a great audience. If not right away, inevitably,
Yeah.
that's what wins.
And people will be back every time you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Every time. And that applies even to authors. That's why newsletters are so crucial. That's why connecting is so crucial. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to have a one-on-one conversation with each and every book buyer, although if you were physically and emotionally capable of handling something like that, I'm sure it would go over well. But the reality is allowing them to see that you are see a part of your world, so to speak. See your writing process, learn your connection to your characters. That connection provides them with an insight into the world, and it does. And this is where I see it, see the value versus service. But you, I suppose, are in some level providing a service because a lot of people don't know this stuff. A lot of people don't know that there are such things as character sheets for many authors where they create out a character, and in order to make them whole, they fill out they fill out this list of questions and thoughts and feelings and reflections of personality and reflections of physical traits and previous interactions. And many authors will do this as part of the writing process. And this is something that, you know, thankfully we could say we kind of pick up from world builders who do that for their Dungeons and Dragons or other um our role-playing games because it's such a integral part of the process and getting pulled into the game. Uh, these are things that people don't know about, and they value that insight. They value that level of imperfection because by the time they get your book on the bookshelf in the library at the convention, hopefully you've got that thing polished and beautiful and it's close to perfect as it's going to get. And giving them those little tidbits on your newsletter helps to connect them further to your characters and brings them back. Connecting with them at the convention in person brings them back every
Yes.
time.
Yeah. If you are willing to be open to people, people tend to be open to you. That's how it works. That is always how it works. Um, Doing this podcast has gotten me my first couple clients on my video biz because they're like
Mhm.
one guy, right? Like one client. I got him not too long ago. I told him I'd have the video by Monday because he's just looking for something really quick, and I'm that's what I'm working on when this is done.
Mhm.
Um, right, something really simple, but I'm going to try to do as good a service as I possibly can because I want him back for something maybe
Mhm.
bigger and a little bit more elaborate down the line because he's going to keep doing campaigns. And hey,
Mhm.
regular. So my service and my value. Okay, in terms of value, I gave him a little. So one of the little tricks I talked to another writer slash copy guy, a marketer. He goes, here's a good customer service trick. Add value at like there's your official like rates. If you go to my page, you've seen my page, so you know what my official rates are. But one of the freedoms I do have is I also have this ability to go, okay, I can take a little bit from here and from here, and I can be like, hey, for a little extra cash, I'll add this value on
Mhm.
to the deal. But that's still a service. I'm giving. I guess here's the thing. I think value. This is what I'll say about value. Value in the right context is it has to feel useful. That's the big thing about value. Value has to tie to service, or value's not is meaningless. Right?
Mhm. Sorry.
Right. No worries. It's all good. Right. Value has to, but so I think service has to be the strongest thing.
Mhm.
But again, I again reemphasize this. Value needs to be there too, but the value
Mhm.
has to be in a way that it feels like it's useful.
Mhm.
Or because here's the other thing like the authors make a really big mistake on. I think okay, newsletter giving away a free short story. I totally get that. I would never give away a free novel. I would never would do it because to me, she's biting her lips, and maybe she disagrees with me on this one. But here's why. And this is just my take on it, and you can rebuke me on this. I just think that a novel, considering the amount of time, effort, energy, and you put into it. Now, maybe if it's an old novel, like something that's been around for a very long time, maybe that's different. But something that you just wrote, I'm careful about giving it all away up front, because there comes a point too that they expect it, and
Hmm.
that's also the other thing. It's like I don't know. It feels like it's value, but it's also isn't that like that's kind of like a line with me. It's like I don't know if I put like 3 to 4 months into a novel, right? I do a very professional job, put a couple $1,000s into it. I don't know if I want to give that for free. On the other hand, on the other hand, maybe if it's been around for 3, 4, 5 years, it's been around for a little bit. It's done its run. Maybe, maybe.
I have found the word free to be my favorite marketing tool.
Okay,
That's actually how I hit number one.
okay.
Made my first book free in a series. Series stayed in the top 10 for the next year and a half. The top 50 for the next year after that, which by that point was starting to actually get pretty competitive. I have found that when I start a new series, you don't make the first book free right away. You wait until you've got books. So if you have more than one book to put out in a relatively short period of time, perhaps over the course of a quarter, then drop that book down to free. For it doesn't have to be indefinite, but that free, if you have done a professional job on the book, if you have taken your time and done the best you can in that first book, and you drop that to free, and you've got 2 or 3 or 4 more books after that, you got read through rate, pays for that first book, usually within a few days of launching the subsequent books.
Gotcha.
If you're
I
doing your job right, you're marketing effectively, and you're stacking your books, free becomes the most beautiful word for a series author, especially.
see. So what you're talking about is the gateway drug method, right? For lack of a better term, it's the gateway drug, because you're like, hey, this is good stuff, and if you like it, you like the rest of them. But to get it,
Hmm.
you have to buy for the rest. There is some value in that for sure, right? Absolutely. When I get to my next Alice book, I will reevaluate Alice Zero. It's also a
Hmm.
small book. It's a very tiny, tiny book. Alice 1 is not small. Alice 2 is not going to be small. Alice Triumphant is also not going to be small,
Hmm.
right? But the how do I put this? How do I say it? But the thing is, you didn't, as you said, you didn't start it free. You
Hmm.
made it a thing of value, and then you're like, okay, now I got like a list of books for you to read. So I'm gonna give you a little kernel, and then
You're going to think I'm silly, but somebody had turned around to me one time and asked me at that point in time, I was a brand new author. So I can tell you right now, those are not, I'm proud that they got to where they got on the charts. Don't get me wrong. But those aren't the quality of work that I put out now.
no,
um, but as a brand new author, somebody said to me, well, if you're not really selling, does it make a difference if it goes free? If you're not selling your targets, does it make a difference? And that's what made me go, you know what? I'm about to launch this third book. Let's just see what happens. When I tell you overnight, all of a sudden, my second book got to the top 10 because my first book at the time, they were still counting free, but it started getting thousands upon thousands of downloads literally overnight from when I made it free, when it finally went free. Bearing in mind that I'm a wide author and making a book free on Amazon is a bear.
you
But
can swear you can swear on my show. It's okay. Just letting you know.
I
Just so you, it's
had
not
a,
your thing. It's not your thing. It's not your thing. But I'm
yeah,
just saying you are free to
it's
swear.
open. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a difficult process. Um, they've made it a little bit easier as they started to realize that this can be a marketing tool. But when I started, it was please everybody go give them the link of the book free from Nook and this and that and the other thing. Now you can just email them and be like, hey, I'm going to be making this free for here and there and call it a day. Um, but yeah, once that actually went free on Amazon, overnight, free became my favorite marketing tool.
Ah,
And that is one aspect I have been able to repeat, because whenever I have put a book out with other books already to go, that first book goes free and I like my paycheck.
and who am I to argue with that? So, right.
But it is a matter of knowing what you're doing. And in the sense that you don't want your first book out there. If you're a brand new author, you might only get pennies, but those pennies are more than you'd be getting if it was free.
Yes,
And when you're just starting out, those pennies count.
they do.
So I wouldn't recommend this for just anybody. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody who doesn't have a backlist.
Yes, and because here's the last thing. It's your backlist that make money as an author. At the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, it's ultimately your backlist. So whenever Catrina Taylor goes, I got a brand new book and it's awesome and made of cheese, everybody checks out all her other stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's right. That's where the money is. And it's always,
Mm-hmm.
again, from the front end, sales have gone down, but from the back end, sales have actually gone way up. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like the book industry is dead. It's like no, it actually isn't. Not even close. It's just
Mm-mm.
what's happened. So what's happened is it's actually gone back in some ways to an older period in time in some ways, in the sense that what I mean by that is way back in my day. I'm looking at the clouds and they're talking back to me right now. Back in like like late '80s, early '90s, what would happen is you'd go buy. Let's say I'm an Asimov guy. Let's say you go buy an Asimov book. You buy his. I think it was one of his Nemesis. I think was the book in '89. So you buy Nemesis. So what they'd have is the secret of the universe. Nice, nice, nice.
Didn't mean to do it upside down, but yeah.
Hey, listen, hey, like I said, we're trained professionals, right, Katrina? Totally. So the thing is, right? So when Nemesis came out, they made their foundation books available.
Mm-hmm.
They would make all the other books. They still do that to some degree today, but not to the same level
Mm-hmm.
because it's about the latest thing, the latest big thing from the latest big
Mm-hmm.
author, unless you're Stephen King or J.K. Rowling or somebody ginormous. So the backlists are
Mm-hmm.
always there, right? For a mid-list author to really, really get to the next level, the best way to just one of the oldest strategies in the book was when they'd launch a new book, they would go back to all their old stuff and go, by the way, all this stuff's available too.
Mm-hmm.
That's an old school marketing technique that
Mm-hmm.
went like again, traditional publishing has taken a step away from,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Indies
But
haven't.
no. Indies to such a degree that okay, if I was a romance author, I would never go traditional. You got way more potential for money, I think, in indie than you do for traditional. It's not to
Mm-hmm.
say that there isn't some money in traditional. I mean, again, there's money everywhere, but
Mm-hmm.
you got a lot better chance with that, especially if you're prolific. Oh my gosh, you'll kill it. That genre, you'll kill it. Like you will murder it dead. And
Mm-hmm.
I say it like that because it's one of those things. Now, for me, so this because we had this conversation, this is what I'll do. So I'm going to try it your way, but this is what I will do. I will wait until I go do two things. I go wide. I will go
Mm-hmm.
wide, and then I will have a physical release for the first Alice book. I'm gonna take Alice 0 and Alice 1 and put them in one book as an omnibus, right? I beg Kenzie to please illustrate some more cool stuff, and then, right, go please do that again, right? And then what I'll do is I'll do a launch at a theater, and again I'll do a launch at a theater, and I will do a I might do an online launch. Like I have a podcast. I've never done a book launch on the podcast before, so that could be fun.
That'd be
That might
fun.
yeah, it could be fun. It could be fun depending on how I do it. I'd have to think about it, but like it could be fun. But
Mm-hmm.
what I'll do is I will release the physical first book, right? That one I'll charge, but the digital one will be free. You want to try it? Well, try it. But you want to get the cool thing, right? You'll buy it. But if you want to just give
Mm-hmm.
it a sample, here you go.
On Amazon specifically, not all the other stores platforms, but on Amazon, if you have your book POD through Amazon and they purchase your book, your physical book, they will give you the option to allow them to have the digital book free, so they can start reading it today before they even gets delivered.
Yes. So something I
And
will consider.
so
Yeah.
absolutely worth it. If you want to do it um, through all of the other retailers, it's actually very, very easy to do with QR codes. Put a QR code on the page that you're looking at, and it'll take them directly to, or links, and it'll take them directly to the ebook. You also have the option, especially if you put it in the preview, so it's in that front matter at the very beginning, and you got that QR code, and they're sitting here. They've already done their shopping. They put it in the cart, but then they realize that that's there. They're flipping through it, and they're going to go like this, and they're going to pick their phone up, and they're going to scan that code, and download it to where they're actually going to be reading it anyway.
Yes. So there you
And
go.
it becomes such a great tool for you, because then you can track the number of people that are using that code to download your books.
So basically, I'm turning my book into a bit of a video game anyway. Okay, that's cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's all good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so simple, and it's so nice that they make these things available to us. You just got to be a little creative in making them happen.
Yes, and I'll have to be playing with that a lot more. So first off, for me, priority is to get regular clients because I'm too old to work for regular people at this point in my life. Right? I want all the people that want their stories told, and here you go.
Hmm.
This is how you do it. Um, but again, I based on my very early responses so far since I changed some stuff up, I'm probably going to do just fine. I somehow have that really feeling that it's gonna work out. And when it really seriously does, then I'll start doing the real serious steps. I'll take one property at a time and go, okay, let's put the investment in this I really want to.
Hmm.
And then next year, I'm hoping by the end of this year, but it's probably gonna be next year. I really play with Kickstarter. And that's my I feel as a author that is a market that a lot of authors have not tapped into well.
Hmm.
Right? There's a handful of exceptions. There's a handful of exceptions to that. And no, folks, I'm not mentioning Brandon Sanderson. I'm thinking people like Russell Nolte, for example. He like talk about a dude that has his Kickstarter shit put together. When I bidded for his Kickstarter, I got my books inside of 2 weeks once the campaign was done. Like he was, oh my gosh, like he had, again, we're talking about service and value. We want to talk about the ultimate combo. That guy is the
Hmm.
best I've ever seen on Kickstarter. Like it's not even. He's so far ahead of the curve. I can't even put a second place. Like
Oh,
that's how
yeah.
good he is, right?
Kickstarter has become a tool for many, many authors as a regular way to release their books.
Yes.
And you've got all these pre-orders, and these pre-orders tell you what your readers are interested in. It's your readers that are going to come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So Kickstarter, like I said, I may not have done it yet, but it is definitely on the list of things to try and to play with and learn. But I also recognize you got to learn it.
Yeah, no. It's also something like you said, and it works its own way too. Like the first campaign will probably be like $3,000 for me. Because again, if we're talking math, can I get 100 people to do $30?
Hmm.
That's the math. That's the
Right.
math in a nutshell, right? So can I get 100 people to do $30? I think I can,
Hmm.
right? I think getting 100 people to say yes isn't hard. But again, notice what I did. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, $3,000. No. Can I get 100 people to
Hmm.
say yes? It's
Yep.
a different mindset when I say it like that.
100% different. And again, like your talk on Conduit was about having a freelancer mindset. If you apply that to pretty much anything you do,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's your novels, or your short stories, or your Vella, or your uh, Kickstarter. Treat it like you understand you have value, like they should pay you, but give them the incentive. Make them say yes. Give them a reason to say yes.
And the ultimate tool for that, folks, if you're especially if you're a writer, tell a story.
100%.
That's it. Tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Katrina, so a couple observations about you in our chat, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are very deliberate. If I were to describe you in just a word, it would be deliberate. You're very you don't rush. You hear, you listen, you think about it, and then you come back, and then you come out, right? So you have either got an incredible bit of self discipline, right? Or no, look at the answer to that. I love the answer to that. She just nods her head. Hell no. But the other part of that is there's an experience like you. It sounds like you have an experience, like you've gone through some ups and you've gone through some downs, and I get the feeling that it has tempered your pacing, for lack of a better term. Am I accurate on saying that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Experience is life's greatest teacher.
it is. Yep. Life. If it doesn't kill you, if it
And
doesn't,
often it provides a clarity and an understanding of the world around you.
there's
And
nothing like a good ass kicking to make you see your place in the world.
this is true.
It's true. There's nothing like it. I've had like these teeth are fake. Why? Because life kicked my ass. I survived. That that was what was left behind. That was like, okay, you know what? I learned.
Hmm.
I'm still here, and I'm grateful. Now life will kick my ass again because I'm
Hmm.
not that smart, right? So life will. So and I say it like that. Um, but in the end, ultimately, it's a good thing because again, what does not kill you makes you stronger. What does not kill you, I actually like the Joker's thing in Dark Knight. What does not kill you simply makes you stranger. There's some truth to that too, but
Yes.
there is that, but there's also this. It's just the fact that when you live a life and you do things and you learn, failure is cut and dry. That's the thing about failure. It's incredibly cut and dry, right? In the sense that that the results you hope for, and I'm going to make this clear. What I mean by
Hmm.
that is the result that you hoped for did not work out, right? There's a
Hmm.
cut and dry result for you to look at. And no, and unless you're again, this is why, like I said, to be detached from all outcomes. If
Hmm.
assuming you have that mentality, right, there's nothing honest, more honest than a result.
Hmm.
So you must learn, or, or you get your butt handed to you again because life doesn't care. Life's like, you know
Hmm.
what? I'm going to give you the same lesson over and over and over again until you get it, right? Or until you're dead, one or the other, right? And
Whichever comes first.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That's the thing, right? Like, so you learn. So again, just ass kickings are good ways to learn in life how to go forward, right? It
Absolutely.
is, yeah.
Hmm.
And everybody should not. And I'm not saying it's fun in the time, but I'm honestly thankful for the times I've gotten my butt kicked.
Hmm.
It,
The the lessons stick with you. The things that if you are making it a point to learn from whatever outcome, even the good ones,
mhm.
but learn from it and embrace it as the lesson it is, you will find positivity will come out of even the darkest times.
Exactly. Although it's harder when you. Here's the thing.
When you're in it, it's hard to see it,
Well,
but it
when you're in
doesn't
it,
mean it won't be there.
I was going to talk about like the six that when things go well. That's when it's
Mhm.
hardest to see it. I think one of the reasons I think success is so hardly earned is because I think for how do I put this? I'm doing a great job. I got nothing to learn from this. It's a very, very realistic outcome, right? It
Mhm.
happens to us all. Hey, man,
Mhm.
it's not broke. Why am I fixing it? And there's some truth. There's a lot of truth to that.
Mhm.
But so it's hard sometimes when things are going really well to be like, I think one of the reasons I think the best thing is when you go through the journey of like instead of going from A to Z, like immediately you go A, B, C, D, you recognize the fact that you learn that you recognize the fact that life, every position you're in is finite. All of them. Doesn't matter what it is. So you
Mhm.
must, as a general rule of thumb, everything is temporary. And we take that one for granted by and large until we really struggle with something, right? Everything is temporary. So because everything is temporary, good things are happening. Like I said, I got a client right now I'm working on. Next week, I don't necessarily have another client to work on. So guess what?
Mhm.
If I don't start working on it now, it's hard this weekend in particular because everybody's celebrating countries' birthdays,
Mhm.
right? So it's kind of hard. But even so, I'm still going to do a little work every day to try to drum up more business. Next week, it's going to come before you know it. The week after, it's going to come before you know it. The week after, it's going to come before you know it. And I want to keep drumming up business
Mhm.
because that's, again, I must stay hungry. I think when things are going really well, because Lord knows I've made this mistake. When things are going good, I'm telling you, you tend to relax a little bit more, and it's just a natural. It's natural,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it might be the hardest thing about success to really fight is, hey, it's going good. I can take it easy. No, you actually can't. Because how did you get here? By working your ass off, so you can't take your foot off the
Mhm.
gas, right?
And how do you
It's,
keep it there? You
yeah,
don't keep it there by kind of effort. It just doesn't work.
yeah. You won't stay there, and I think, and this is a lesson I'm still learning, which is why my
Mhm.
freelancing is still going,
Mhm.
but it is going in the upward direction at the very least. So it's just like I figured this out.
That's
It's like,
good.
hey, that's all I can hope for, right? And no, but
Mhm.
again, there's gonna be months. No matter what I do, it's gonna be like, there's gonna be months where it's gonna be like, hey. I just gotta remember when it's hey. I gotta prepare for what's next. It never ends, and this is why people get tired sometimes. But it's okay to take. But that all said, and this is going to sound contradictory. It's okay to take a little time off sometimes, just for that reason. It's like if it's going good, you know what? If you don't need to right away jump to the next thing, that's okay too.
Mhm.
Figure out what that line is for you between oh shit, I got to keep moving versus you know what? I can enjoy my day because
Mhm.
everybody needs that balance somewhere.
Agreed. You need I personally went through an issue where I got very close to hospitalization over the craziest thing in the world, burnout.
Yeah.
M Did it to myself. You have to balance what you're doing against your refreshment. If you don't, you can make yourself as physically ill as any disease that you might develop or catch.
Yes.
You know, you have to take care of yourself. But that doesn't mean forgetting that you still have a business to run. It means giving yourself time off, giving yourself to be time to be refreshed, and then come back to it with a more tempered mind and a more motivated spirit and a more directed path because you've had the time to get there as opposed to trying to stay on the path regardless of anything to the point of literally burning yourself out on things you make love doing. There's no point in that. No point in that.
It takes confidence to take a day off. I'm going to quote Michael Bisping, a former MMA, UFC light heavyweight champion. He goes, "It takes confidence to take a day off. Say, you know what, I'm good, right?" He goes, the trick is, and you can do that for a day or two, but you got to be careful because again, you form habits, so you don't want to
Mhm.
become a lazy fucker in the process. And that's again, that's where that line is. And we don't, and we're saying all this, folks, to, like, just to say, like, look, mastering this thing, nobody gets it all right all the time. We all
Ever.
have ever. But if you can understand the general direction of where you're, again, being honest with yourself. Am I doing the work? Do I need to do the work today? Or can I be a little lazy today? And sometimes you can do that, right? You have to be honest about where you stand, and that's a very different thing. Now, me, I need to keep getting more work. Right now, that's where I'm at. Now, I may not do that tomorrow. Tomorrow, what I might do, and I think I'm going to do this, is I'm going to unplug from the computer and all that stuff tomorrow and just chill. Like, I'm just going to go out and about. I'm going to find a park, or I'm going to find a somewhere in the city. And I'm not going to, may not even bring my phone. I might just say, you know what? I'm not even going to be plugged in. I'm just going to take the day as it comes. I'm 50-50 on the phone, right? But that's it. I'm not going to worry about it. Maybe I'll just take a book with me. I'm going to find a quiet little tree in the park and sleep. Maybe I find a pretty girl and I hit on her. Maybe she'll even say yes. Who knows, right? But either way, like tomorrow, and I'm thinking about this tomorrow. I'm probably just going to disconnect for a day and just let myself recharge. Now, Sunday, theoretically, I could do the same thing. I'll see how I feel Sunday. Like, I'll see how I like that day will be more of, I'll see how I feel. If I feel it, I'll do it. If I feel like I should work, I'll work. But if I feel like I don't have to, I won't. Now, Monday, I'm working. That's not a question. But Sunday is like the questionable day. And that's the kind of, like, again, self-worth, self-value, whatever, So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's important that you're recognizing that you need to take that time and that you are taking that time, and that even if you don't need to, you absolutely are entitled to.
Exactly. I can be confident. Now, if I'm still doing it Monday, I'm a lazy fucker. That's just the way. Now, that's just me being honest. This is me being honest.
You don't want to break the good habits.
Exactly. No.
And it's so easy to do when you're replacing them with not so good habits.
It's a hard balance. Like I said, last night I made a mistake. I started watching The Boys. I watched it a little bit longer than I should have. Probably went one episode too long. And I'm being very honest. But tomorrow I can do that. I didn't watch. Actually, yeah, legitimately, just one episode too long. I watched. I could have walking away at 3 was okay. I went to 4. I shouldn't have went to 4. That's just me being honest, right? Right.
It's like me sitting down with one of the new Star Trek shows and thinking I'm going to hit stop.
Oh no! See, I've learned. No. I learned my lesson. I will never do Netflix ever again, ever. Here's why. It wasn't. So remember when the original? This is back in the day when Daredevil was a brand new series. Season 1 Daredevil was pretty badass. Binging that in one night. I think a lot of people did that. No, it's just me. A lot of people did that. I forgave myself for that. So there's a Japanese anime series called Kill la Kill. Now, Kill la Kill is nowhere near the quality of Daredevil. It's not. It just isn't. Now, it's not a bad show, but it's not that either. So when we ended up, me and my buddy ended up watching the whole series, and that whole series in one night, that was when me recognizing, again, it's something I think, knowing your own weaknesses. Netflix makes it too easy for you not to keep going. It makes it way too easy. And if I'm into something, or I just let myself get drawn into something, I tend to go all the way. So I can't do Netflix. Netflix will not work for me because I will just end up watching everything under the freaking sun. But
I have Paramount Plus because I thought I could hit stop.
So what did you think of Picard?
Loving it. Haven't finished it because I found the stop button finally. Way further than I thought I would. That was my reminder that I don't know how the stop button Picard was. I'm absolutely loving it. I love the changes that they're making. I haven't seen the latest season yet because I'm afraid of not hitting that stop button when I need to.
Well, no, I enjoyed the last season.
Mhm.
Hey, Jag.
I agree. Picard has been amazing. It really has been. I
Okay, there
am.
we go. I've enjoyed. I'm 50-50 on it on some things. I think honestly, Picard should be an 8 episode. Hey, Jag. I think Picard honestly would be a great 8 episode season. That's just me. I think the pacing on a couple of them, even in season 2, was just like I was like, eh. Like
Mm.
you could have made it tighter. And that's just me being going, okay, you could have made this tighter. Um, that all said, I really. So, do you know who the quote unquote the antagonist in season 2 is? I think it's everybody knows, but if you don't, I'm not gonna spoil it.
I'm um, John Delancey.
That's right, Mister Q.
Hmm.
So I've always enjoyed Picard's relationship with Q. Like I've always enjoyed it. It's one of those Q was in some ways I thought one of Picard's best teachers.
He was.
Right? Yeah, he was one of Picard's best teachers because he would force Picard to think about things in ways he never considered, and
Hmm.
sometimes it could be the devil. Sometimes he had a little bit of that quality, but see that's
Yes,
what
he is.
but he's
You are
supposed to be.
100% correct. He is. But
But,
he's, yeah, exactly. He's supposed to be. He's very good at it. My favorite line, though, came from, with regard to Q, came from Cisco.
yeah, oh, which one?
The one where, actually, I guess it was the whole interaction, really. And it was the first time, well, I think it might even be the only time Q
It's the
showed
only
up
time
on
Q only
DS9.
showed up once
Hmm.
on that, only once on that DS9. Cisco
And
did not need Q. Cisco didn't need Q. That's the
he
thing. Like,
antagonized him like he did, and then Cisco knocked him on his
yep,
butt. And Q, he says, "I'm Picard. You hit me. Picard never hit me. I'm not Picard." No, you're
yes,
much easier to provoke.
yeah. Wait, yeah, no. It just
I love
Cisco's
that
my
interaction. They played
no,
so
that
well. And
no,
it's so dynamically different from the Picard Q interaction.
it had to
Like you
be.
said, ultimately, Q became such a teacher in so many different ways, forcing him into absurd situations that he had to think his way out of.
My favorite one's still the Robin Hood. That's my favorite. That's my favorite. That was perfect on so many levels. It was just like, mwah. Right.
Do you
Uh,
do you remember when he gave Riker the power of the Q?
yeah, I did. It's not as good though, because Q was much more a bad guy in that one. He was still more like a villainous role. He became who he became when he ironically lost his powers. The other one that was
Mhm.
interesting, right? That's when Delancey made Q what he was. Uh, my favorite smallest scene with Q is that episode because how he thanked Data. He goes, "Are you going to make me hear?" No. I would never curse you with that. Think of this instead as a gift, and he makes Data laugh. And I thought that showed ironically his humanity. He's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm never gonna make you human. That's not, you don't need that. But but a, for an android who cannot feel, to
Mhm.
laugh. I, he didn't make him feel angry. He didn't make him feel. He made him
Mhm.
laugh. One of the most joyous things. And it's like that is perfectly cute. The
And
mariachi
that,
band before that's funny too, but that
yeah.
scene is
Mm-mm.
still
No,
great.
that one was heart touching. That decision was heart touching. And like you said, it showed his humanity. That thing that I believe from the moment he met them on Farpoint Station, he was looking for.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
the storyline with Hugh as it develops, it really feels very much like he is just a different form of Data, searching for his humanity, searching for his
That's an
why
interesting
do they
transition.
think this way? Why do they do this? Why do they feel this way?
I
Learning from them.
learning from them, yes, I think, but not. See, I think. See, I don't think quite Data. I think it's more like this. What would a god enjoy most in his
Mhm,
creation? We talked about this at the beginning about progression, right?
mhm,
Um, Surprise.
mhm,
Here's the one I think what Q got from the Enterprise crew. The Enterprise crew. Voyager's a different animal, but the Enterprise
mhm,
crew constantly surprised him. And that was his joy from them. Mr. Data saving him. Even Worf. How do I prove that I'm human? Die. Like that line is awesome. Like just that's Worf being Mr. Worf, throw him
mhm.
into the brig. Where's Flight? Like you see Worf just
Oh, the
smile.
joy in the
Yeah,
Klingon.
yeah. Oh my gosh, like with oh my gosh, with pleasure, right? And then, but again, for me, perfectly, it's the episode with both Bosch and Q, like in Robin Hood. That's it's perfectly in cap. Again, it's the surprises, the fact that Bosch betrays Picard in the middle of that episode. Even Q didn't see that one coming. It's like, okay, this is not what I expected to happen at all, right? And and it's perfect, right? But it's also Picard making the choice to stab himself later on. The series finale of Next Generation is my favorite Star Trek series finale. It's my favorite one because it took you on such a fun little ride, right? Just such a fun little ride the whole way. You didn't really know what was going on until towards the end, but you were completely captivated by the mystery. And Q showing up halfway in that, right? Was interesting because again he almost went back to his villain role, except he didn't.
Mhm,
Except he didn't, and it was one of those. It was one of those moments that, and then at the end of that, which is perfect. It goes back to season two of Picard. The trial never ends. The trial never ends. But what Q always got from the crew, if you want to really, I think, nail this down, was he was constantly surprised by them. The situations he put them in, he was constantly surprised. The only one that went exactly to plan with Q was the one where he threw him to the Borg. That was the only one that was perfectly like, I'm throwing
mhm,
in, you're going to ask for my help at the end of this. And they did because they needed it. But
mhm,
they needed that humbling. They needed it, right? But again, he was a teacher, but he was also pleasantly surprised. And like I said, the last scene in episode 10 was touching, very touching. I thought it was
yeah,
a perfect send off to Picard's and Q's relationship. It was perfect because it's who Picard is and ultimately who Q was to him. And I thought that was an
mhm,
interesting. I love that dynamic. He's an but Jag Q was an asshole because he wanted you off balance. He wanted to
mhm,
see who you are. If you want to actually see who someone is, piss them off.
mhm,
That's actually a very good way to learn exactly who somebody is. When you find where people are uncomfortable talking about, when you find where people feel, really just feel without necessarily thinking, that is how you learn who they really are and what makes them tick. And that's why Q did that. Right? Because if you came
mhm,
out to them nice, they never would have listened to him, no matter how much
mhm,
strength he had. But the fact that he was such an obnoxious asshole, he
mhm.
gave them no choice. He gave them
Right.
no choice but to listen to him, and that's
Mhm,
why it worked. And Delancey's a great actor. That's the other thing too. He's a great actor.
mhm,
I think the Star Trek cast, all of them are great. I'm going to say this: I don't like every Star Trek show, but
mhm,
I do like. It's almost never anything to do with the cast. The cast are, I think, are the right people. I just
mhm.
think like my least favorite show is Voyager. I hate. I'm sorry. I just do. It drives me nuts. right? It just drives me nuts because that show missed some very open goals. That's how I look at it. It's like it just missed some of the
Mhm.
most open up goals. I'm just like, why did you? I get why you went. You're kind of why you went with the storytelling you did, but at the same time, it's just like you could have done this. Like,
There were a lot of decisions with that show made behind the scenes that I am certain they are wishing they hadn't made. They set them up for um, the Year of Hell to be a series long storyline, not a season finale starter thing. That was supposed to go for the entire series or season, excuse me, originally. That would have done for Voyager what DS9 had with the Dominion War.
see, I don't know about that. There's a very big difference in how they tell the stories. So I'm just gonna answer Jack here.
Mhm.
My Here's my opinion. Enterprise was a good show at the wrong time. Although I will say the worst series finale of all time. Of all of them,
That was the worst series finale, and as a matter of fact, I don't even count it as a series finale. I don't acknowledge it.
no. It's like it's bad. But
It is.
I think the show as a concept's interesting. I
I
think
actually loved it.
yeah
It's
it's
not the finale.
yeah no see, the finale is terrible. Like anyone who says it's oh, yeah, no because here's the thing, it's a prequel show, and
Mhm.
it did a better job of what Voyager was trying to do. So what Voyager here's how this is how I took Voyager.
Okay.
Voyager, they were going to try to throw it back kind of to the original Star Trek series or the Next Generation in terms of how they told their stories.
Okay.
DS9 had a very much more linear novel-esque, especially towards the later half of the series,
Mhm.
right? That DS9 had this. Now the cool thing about that is you saw so much character progression. DS9 is far and
Mhm.
away my favorite of all the Star Treks because I think the writing is freaking top notch. I think
Mhm.
you have the overall top to bottom, main and guest cast included, the best cast of all of the shows, and you have some amazingly season 6 of DS9. It might be one of the best science fiction seasons of all television, not just Star Trek, all of television. Season 6 is amazing. Voyager was trying to go back to okay, I do an episode, we go into an hour, we get into a problem, we get out, and then we move on to the next episode, which is what the old Star Treks were. The
Mhm.
problem with that was DS9 had come, Babylon 5 had come,
Mhm.
even to a lesser extent, Stargate and some of the other science fiction shows that had come. It had to be a much more linear progression. Like I said, the two biggest open goals that were
Mhm.
missed in Voyager were Harry Kim. Harry Kim
Mhm.
should have been promoted. Nog was promoted on DS9. I mean, just to
Right.
compare the differences, Nog, you literally saw Nog from entering Starfleet Academy to becoming a lieutenant in 4 years.
Mhm.
Harry Kim was an ensign for the entire 7 years of Voyager. Like, it's an open goal. You want to show it even just a hint of progression. Move him up the
Mhm.
ranks. Open
Right.
goal, missed. The other open goal that was missed was Belana Torres and Tom Paris's wedding. Actually, having a real wedding on the
Yeah.
show would have been good. I would have, again, one of the only few specks of character
That
progression.
that wedding, that marriage, it almost came out of left field the way they didn't set it up.
Yes.
You had, okay, one minute they're friends, the next minute all of a sudden they're confessing undying love to each other. No, that's not actually how life works. You know,
No, but
that
but
that was one of my pet peeves with Voyager. Was now once they got them in the relationship and they were together, that was fine. But getting them to that point, there was no setup. There was
no,
no.
it was very weird. I think they were looking for a ratings grab actually with the way I initially started, but neither here nor there. I
Mm-mm.
think the other thing about Voyager, the last thing is I think it took them till about season 5 to really find the voice of that show. Whereas a lot of the other shows found their voice by season 2 or season 3 at the very latest. Voyager, it took them to 5 seasons. I think 7 and 9 was a huge improvement on the show. I don't think nothing against Jennifer Leon, but I thought again showing progression in the show, showing a difference in the show. Seven's growth is one of the very few growth spots in the show.
Hmm.
7, the Doctor, B'Elanna and Tom's relationship. Those are like
Hmm.
these are very small kernels. If I even compare, like, and by the way, you don't need a huge changes. Like
Right.
Next Generation did not have a lot of changes after
Mm.
season 3. But even so, there was still a feeling of progression in the show. Little different, even if it's as simple as Warp getting a ponytail. Even there were promotions throughout the show. There were like character relationships changed a little bit dynamically. So
Got to
if you
meet
look,
children, watch them grow up, watch them
yeah,
develop. Hmm.
yeah. So I mean, you don't need a huge linear, you don't need a super linear story, but you have to have a feeling of change and progression. If I were to my criticism of Voyager ultimately is this: it never felt like there was one.
Hmm.
And that's what to me made the show very hard for me to watch. Not the cast. Again, I am not criticizing anybody on that cast. I'm not criticizing the female captain aspect of it. None of that stuff. It's the fact that, and also, and I will give this to Voyager, it is the coolest idea of all of the Star Treks. It is far and away the coolest concept. Instead of trying to explore the galaxy, they're trying to go home. Because instead of just going out into the galaxy, they're trying to come. They got thrown out and trying to come back in. I thought that was a really cool inversion of that
Hmm.
idea. It's one of the best concepts.
And I like the way they did it.
Yeah.
As far as it wasn't your, they didn't fall through a wormhole. They actually
No.
had an interaction. That first contact thing that we always hear about with Star Trek, that's a big deal for them. That's what
Yeah.
caused them to get thrown out there. And
Yeah.
that was a really, for being a series starter, that was a really fun story
Yeah.
because you hit all the Star Trek notes and then you challenge the crew and then you put them in the impossible situation.
Yeah.
And
I think
yeah,
that
there
was,
was a lot of places they could have set up better.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like that's the thing. That yeah. Like series premieres go. Like I'm giving it to them. It's one of the best series premieres you'll ever watch. It's amazing what they come up with in just those two
Hmm.
hours. But not, like I said, there's a lot of other nitpicks. There's a lot of other nitpicks I could bring to the show, but ultimately, if I were to just break it down to one thing and just one thing only, it's the fact that you know it just they went back, they went too far back into the non-linear storytelling,
Hmm.
and they try to make it feel like an old school Star Trek. And what they should have tried instead to do was make it kind of feel like itself. And I think they found it, but it took them a while to do that.
Yeah, it did take them a little bit longer, but like I said, I think Year of Hell, had they made that for the whole season like they originally intended, you'd have probably seen more of that linear development and that because it would necessitate it.
Yeah,
It was a story that would have required progression to the point in which we saw it end.
yeah,
Because you knew it wasn't going to be there forever. Because how much else had they been through that got reset? They Voyager played with time like it was water, and
yeah.
it's not. But um,
So to a lesser extent to the Enterprise, but
mhm,
I was more okay with Enterprise because again it was, I think the first season's kind of weak, but even so, I liked it. Again, a prequel story wasn't a bad call. I just feel it's the wrong time to do it. That's just my criticism of it. And again, we're not less said about the series finale, the better. It's a good show. It's not a great show, but it was definitely a good show. That's kind of how I see it. And Jag may disagree with me, and that's fine. It's all good. It's all good.
and we've all got. You can love Star Trek and not love all the things.
Oh yeah,
So
totally, totally.
and still actually be a Trekkie or a Trekker or whatever you want to call yourself. I mean, I would be 100%, and I'm definitely
Yeah,
Trekkie.
no worries.
Into the Star Trek stuff. Without Star Trek, I wouldn't be an author.
Yeah, no. And
Mm.
honestly, like and some of my favorite stuff in science fiction comes from Star Trek.
I'm with you, Jag.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Trekkie for life. None of this Trekker BS. Okay, sure. That one I was missing. Actually, I did an episode about 2 months ago. They did the Tower Track. We literally talked about all the Star Trek shows. All it was just a Star Trek themed episode
I need to go
completely.
find this.
Yeah, no, I'll give you the link when it's over. It like Troy and I think Jim Lambert. Yeah, I think it's Jim. We just talked Star Trek for most part. We dabbled a little bit into Star Wars and Cthulhu a little bit because J.J. Abrams does come up, right? Because you have to talk about him in Star Trek, and right, you have to. You may not like everything he did, but he isn't. And I kind of get the feeling that I'm right on that. It's like maybe you didn't like it so much.
The first movie was okay. The third movie was okay. The one where they utterly obliterated an icon, not so much.
Well, see. So this is my take on all J.J. Abrams movies. All of them, you have to turn your brain off. Like, you must, because if you turn your brain on, it ruins the magic. Because okay, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. No, even. Yeah, that's nice. Oh, okay. Hold on a second here. No, it's fair, Jag. It's fair.
Yeah.
No,
100%.
it's fair. The only thing I will say is this. This is the only thing I've said about him. This is the only thing I said about him, and it's the only. I think the decision to try to add a little bit more of an action bit of content to Star Trek wasn't entirely a bad one, right? I think honestly the series could have used, and we talked about this a little bit more detail, but I think the series could have used that. However, like I said, you have to turn your brain off. That's not what a Star Trek series does. Star Trek, like I said, mentioned this, The Force Awakens, Star Wars. That beam, that 3-part beam that's annihilating planets. If you stop and really think about that for a second, that's impossible. Like you just take a moment, you stop, you think, you're like, this doesn't work. And then you start thinking about some of the other things in there, and it just doesn't work. But it's a fun ride if you turn your brain off. So that's the thing, and that was always the thing about him, which is why I'm saying, like, I wasn't crazy about those 3 movies either. I get the decision behind those 3 movies. I get why they did it. I don't agree with it either, but at least this is just me going, okay, I get it. You wanted an action-oriented Star Trek. That's what you wanted. And the first one works, kind of.
The minute that J.J. Abrams publicly said he had never watched Star Trek before he started working on a Star Trek movie, you knew it was going to be a disaster. Period. Full stop.
Okay.
And the second movie lived up to that wholeheartedly.
Yep.
They had so many other quote-unquote super beings they could have pulled from the Botany Bay. There's no such thing as magic in Star Trek, so magic blood was not a thing. And I'm going to stop there because
it's not yours. I get it. No, I get it.
And I struggled with that one so hard. I felt like it was such a waste of money. I was trying so hard to see a new direction for Star Trek. I wanted to see new fresh faces, and let's get it moving again. Let's get it out in front of people again. But that wasn't Star Trek. That was Star Wars in a box.
And all I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm saying is I understood the decision process behind it. I get it. An action-oriented Star Trek, in principle, is not a bad idea. And after Enterprise, and after Voyager, and after that run of shows, a different direction honestly was called for. Now, would that have been my first choice? No. But then again...
the director who knew what they were talking about was Star Trek. You could have gone action. You absolutely could have. But the person has to know what they're doing first. They have to know the personality of the franchise if you're going to appeal to those who are already in love with the franchise.
Yes, like I said, which is why, like I said, and then I read a science fiction author, Kate Elliott, said, "I watched Star Trek. I watched the first movie. It was fine, but you have to turn your brain off." And every time I watch a J.J. Abrams thing, I thought like her assessment of him is correct. If you turn your brain off, it's fine. If you can't, then just don't. Right?
We go back to Kickstarter for a second. It's about connecting with the people you're going to serve, the people you're going to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
J.J. Abrams did not do that.
No.
He didn't care. He thought he was so good that he wasn't going to have any issues, and now he can't even get the actor signed to do the next movie
Yep.
because he was so far off base.
No, it's also the fact that Star Trek's now in a different direction. And too, they went back to Picard, but they also got Strange New Worlds. They also got I'm 50-50 on Discovery as well. It's not quite my Star Trek. It's not quite my Star Trek.
First season of Discovery was not even Star Trek as far as I'm concerned, but once they started to move a little bit more coherently, that got better.
But again, it's like every other Star Trek show. Usually the first seasons. Look, let's be honest. As much as I like the Next Generation, that first season is not that good. Let's be real here, right? Let's be real, right?
That's where Wesley got his Mary Sue title, because he doesn't really maintain it throughout the series. But in that first season, he's a Mary Sue. He's got an answer for everything.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah,
no. I
get love Wesley. Yes, that first season. Yeah, they were getting their legs under them.
Yeah, no, you got, again, when you create, even if you have an idea where any property's going, you got to figure out that balance of what the property is and how to make it your own. And whoever's doing that has to kind of figure that out. That's kind of how I see it. Like, it's not. So that's why, even with any other kind of show on television, that first season's all about figuring out what that balance is, whatever that show is. And then once you have it, then you tell your stories. That's when you really can do it. Some shows figure it out quicker than others, but usually the first season's kind of a wash. I actually get very terrified when that is the best season. That's when it makes me. So another science fiction show I kind of liked, but then in the second season, and after the second season, I didn't like anymore, was Andromeda. The first season's actually the first season's good. The first season's really good. Robert Heward Wolf from DS9 left DS9 to develop that show, and then he left the show halfway through the second season, and it showed what happened after he left. Now, but the first season is actually really interesting, if a touch under budget. And yes, I know it's a Kevin Sorbo show, but even so, whatever you might think, first season's actually pretty good.
I enjoyed Andromeda.
Yeah.
I didn't get as deep into it as I do Star Trek, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah. It had a really cool concept, just not. They lost. I feel like they lost the plot after season 3. It's like, I don't think they know what they're doing anymore. So that was my opinion. Other people might have a different one, but that was mine. But anyway, let's digress. Miss Catrina, I gotta thank you for coming on my show.
My pleasure. This has been fun.
Yeah. We talked freelancing and we talked Star Trek. So yeah, I will let you know. It's episode, I think, 760 in my YouTube channel. You can just find it there. It's Troy and Jim Lambert, and all we do is we talk all the Star Trek shows. I guess the last question we're gonna ask is this: your favorite captain in Star Trek?
Ooh, that's tough.
It is. I know. I know where my top 2 are. So.
I love Cisco. Love Cisco. Um,
You can answer the
uh,
question too, Jag. If you want to answer
feel,
the question, I'll answer it as well.
um, the thing is, I also really like Picard. I really
Hmm.
like, um, I guess those would be my top two.
My top two too. Picard's the captain you always want, but Cisco's the man you want to be. That's the difference between the two of them.
I
And
like the steady hand of the captain. And really, even though Cisco was much more easily provoked, as Q pointed out, he was also willing to stand there and do what it took, no matter what that was.
oh no, Cisco is legit. Like,
Hmm.
okay, seriously, he's legit badass because he not just for all the stuff he did with the Dominion. Um, well, it's for me, it's like this. Cisco actually, in some ways, had to be more adaptable than Picard had to be. So, right, that
Hmm.
Cisco is far more adaptable because the thing about Picard is he had the to some degree he had the luxury of the fact that he was on a starship in Starfleet. Cisco was on a space station, so he would have to deal with all these different cultures with different values, feelings, and stuff, way more than even Picard had to do. As a principled man, Picard might be the more principled of the two of them.
Hmm.
But if you, but the thing is, Cisco dealt with a lot more. He dealt with a lot more from the outside. He had to be he would in some ways have to be the voice of reason in a way Picard never had to be
Hmm.
ever. So I look at the fact that, like, for me, and by the way, I do find it hilarious that everybody I've asked this question, it is these two. Right? Cisco's
Hmm.
one, Picard is two for me. And I realize that more other people, it might be the other way around, but it's those are the top two. And everybody I've asked so far, it's like it's those two because because Cisco
I
again.
honestly, I like Janeway. I like the fact that she has a tenacity the others haven't had to have to the
Mhm.
same degree. She had to have that narrow-minded focus of get my people home, and she would put everything on the line to make sure it happened. And I appreciate that. She was a very steady, directed captain. She doesn't bring the same energy though that these two do.
She doesn't bring the same energy, but also she never, didn't have the same level of character development these two had.
That's true.
Not she did this again. This is just one of those, like, this is my personal critique of Voyager. You had a really interesting cast, but
Hmm.
you didn't make them interesting enough in terms of letting them develop and grow. And I and figuring out who these characters are. Janeway is third to me. I have a soft spot for Kirk, but Kirk's a cowboy from another era, right? He's totally a cowboy from another era. So there's a little bit of a
Hmm.
soft spot for him. And like I said, Strange New Worlds, I have not seen yet, so I can't really say, but I do get the feeling that looking at them, but again, old school strip. It's Cisco and Ricard brought, yes, an energy, a charisma, but both of them had the chance to really. You knew who those two guys were.
Hmm.
I'm still not convinced I know who Janeway fully is, and I
And I
think
can
that's
understand that.
yeah, that's my knock on Janeway. It's not. Put it to you this way: I think Major Kira is one of the most dynamic female protagonists ever, and she smokes Janeway in every category. My opinion, right? And the reason I say that is because as a guy, I didn't really think about the fact that Major Kira was a woman. I just knew that she had an air of command, and when she was in charge, I believed she could do it.
Hmm.
Right. That's my opinion. Right. I
That's
think
true.
I would put, if I compare Janeway to Kira, I take Kira. So
And I could certainly understand the decision.
yeah, yeah. You might not agree with me, but that's
Mhm.
where I'm at. Like I had this conversation with another science fiction author. I said, the three biggest badass female protagonists of the 80s and 90s were Ripley from Alien, Sarah Connor from Terminator, and Kira from DS9. I don't think you. I do not think. I if you consider the totality of the work Nana Visitor did with Kira,
Mm-hmm.
just unbelievable. Like those, like one of the strongest female protagonists in all of television. Sadly, not. And I say that sadly because she came out in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
It's little, yeah. No, like no, Jack. Like,
She is. I would say her and Jadzia both
I like Jadzia, but I
crossed.
think
I was gonna say they crossed a lot of factors of perception, barriers of the way people saw character development in
mhm,
an ongoing series.
yep.
They also pushed boundaries in other ways, besides having a woman who could take command from the captain at any time
Oh
and
yeah,
challenge the captain's decisions at every time. Every chance the opportunity came, she challenged.
not always. She agreed with it when she agreed. When they agreed, she backed them. Like she was very good. What made
Mhm.
so here's the thing.
But that wasn't right away. That was
No, oh no.
season 3, maybe, when that started happening more consistently. And I
that's
loved that about the series. They didn't start with, oh, everybody's best friends,
no,
like they did on The Next Generation. That's pretty much all, like, one of the factors that I was really glad they changed, because you don't walk into a work environment and be everybody's best friend. And they kind of forced that when they did Voyager. They took two very dynamically polar groups of people, put them on the same ship, had to get them home together, and so they needed them to work together. But instead of causing seeing any real friction beyond the first 2 or 3 episodes, they brought it up, I think, one more time in the series, and that was, in that case, I guess, as you were pointing out, growth. That was something I expected, especially after having seen DS9 and been so addicted to DS9. I expected to see more friction. I expected to see more challenges, at least from Chakotay. Maybe not on the bridge, but hey, we need to go talk because you're overstepping. You don't know my people. You know what I mean?
yes.
That's the kind of thing that I expected more by that setup
Well, so
and
okay,
didn't
so
get.
yeah, no, you didn't get it, and so again, this is why I say Cisco's such a more adaptable captain because he would compromise with Kira too. Like when
Hmm.
he'd hear it, he'd compromise sometimes. Sometimes he'd fight back just as hard. Sometimes he'd
Hmm.
have to. Again, they had a really interesting. They weren't. The character was a what we would consider most of us would be considered a terrorist. She killed
Hmm.
people in the name of freeing her people,
Hmm.
and they won, which is an
Hmm.
interesting thing. She was able to make that character sympathetic, which is something that I think is an amazing achievement in of its own. Then
Hmm.
developing the fact again, Kira's a badass. She just was like you just again. I didn't think again such a strong aura about her. I didn't even think she was about her being a man or a woman. Just someone that you would follow.
Hmm.
That's an incredible feat right there. But
Hmm.
also her history with the Cardassians, the fact that she would not. I think the most admirable thing about Kira to me was she has more reason to look at the darkness of humanity than most because of what she's seen, and she's not a dark character.
Hmm.
She has a pragmatism to her, but she's not a
Hmm.
dark character at all. That takes a certain level of strength that very few characters have.
Hmm.
And she doesn't deny reality. She doesn't deny issues. She accepts things. She does have a vindictive side. She does have a bit of a she has a temper. But for all of that, and she has pride too. She has a lot of pride. But for all of
She's
that,
earned it.
yeah, like I said, if you wanted to give me a choice between Kira and Janeway, it's Kira. It's not even
Hmm.
close, right? Be for that reason because it just again, but Kira was allowed to develop this over an extended period of time. Dax,
Mhm.
Jadzia, as much as I respect Jadzia, her role was different. She was the, for lack, I never would have believed her in command. Not because I don't think she wasn't capable of it, but her role on the show is very much
Mhm.
um, the advisor. She'd been like she's the old man, and I loved that. It
Mhm.
was an interesting role with her. She was the old man. She'd seen it all, done it all. Command doesn't fit her the same way it would fit anybody else, but
Mhm.
her willingness to embrace other cultures, as much as Armin Shimmerin and Rom Max Grodenchek did to bring the Frangreen to something, to three dimensionalize them,
Mhm.
Jadzia also played a very huge role in that. And I don't think people realize just how important she was. Really cool of creating acceptance for other cultures. Very valuable on the show, but in terms of, for lack of a better term, the strength of character, I would put it's like Kira and Cisco are pretty neck and neck to me.
Mhm.
That's just my opinion. Yeah.
Well, like you said, Jadzia's role on the show was different, and she
Yes.
executed it flawlessly. I
Yes.
feel like while I feel Esri Dax had a lot of potential, I feel like they took a major step down by taking by going that route.
They had no choice. Jazzy had to leave the show. Like Terry Farrell, the actress, left to
Hmm.
do another show for a contract. They had no choice. I actually think, considering the amount of time they had, they did a good job with Esri. They didn't have the time to give her the same level of development, but they tried. Like I
Hmm.
can't you can't say that
No,
I
they absolutely tried. And the
yeah,
episode with her when she went home and had to deal with the mining issue and uncovered a whole lot more, and worked with Miles on that. That was a good episode. That was a good. Um, I don't think that they handled the Worf Dax interaction at all
but
well.
I
I That could have gone so much better.
I wish they had more time. This was one of the I just feel like the way that, and this is this thing about the seventh season, because they were wrapping up, so like this first half of this season is very much what you felt like in the other Star Treks, but the
Hmm.
second half is they're wrapping so much stuff up,
Hmm.
right? My favorite scene from season 7 is between Ezra and Worf, when she essentially convinces Worf to kill Gowron. I thought that was amazing. That little scene is amazing,
Mm.
because Ezra because the fact that it was Ezra, they had the freedom to approach the Klingon Empire from a different perspective than what Jadzia would have done.
Hmm.
Right? She goes, I don't have the same faith in the Klingon Empire that you or even Jadzia have. I think it deserves to die, and I think it's dying and it deserves to die. And Worf's
Yeah.
response is, "You're right. I don't like this." And then she goes, like, I think, and she explains it like a counselor, like, you're a
Hmm.
culture in deep denial. Do you have a leader you can respect? And it, like, can you think of one?
Hmm.
It says, you have been able to tolerate corruption on the highest of levels. And if
Hmm.
even you, one of the most honorable Swiss, you are one of the best men I've ever met.
Hmm.
But if even you are willing to put up with this, then what hope is there for anybody else?
Hmm.
That scene is amazing. It was
It
like,
was a man.
yeah, I think, like I said, it's my favorite scene in season 7, actually, because it's just, one, it's a really cool evolution. Also, the fact that she has, the thing I thought that was rushed was her and Dr. Bashir, right? That's the thing that was really rushed, I think.
It
But
was.
my favorite, but again, I'm a little bit more forgiving on this, simply because they had a lot to do in that season,
Hmm.
because they were wrapping everything up and they wanted to give everybody as many payoffs as possible. And Ezri's development somewhat paid the price for that.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's not like I can't really say that they held back. It's just, if they had another season, it might have worked out, I think, a lot better, but they didn't. So they did the best they could. So anyway, going back to, like, my favorite line right after that is watching Bashir playing with O'Brien on things. He is a child, and I love that that's their relationship now. It's just like, he is a child, and Ezra's looking at him. I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing. I love that. That was like, their friendship at the end was really interesting, even though it was short. it was really interesting to watch them because it was fun.
There, the O'Brien Bashir friendship in that series was one of the cornerstones as it developed. Once it developed so securely that it felt like it belonged. It felt like with everything that brought them to that point, it belonged. They
Yeah,
wrote that in such a way. Now, if they prepared romantic relationships that way, then there would be no pairing that could ever be questioned or torn apart. But they did that for O'Brien and Bashir on that series in a way I really haven't seen a friendship built so solid anywhere on television. That it didn't start the series off that way, that you actually built that in front of the audience. I haven't
I
seen another series do that to that level.
oh, there's lots of things that series did very well, like Rom.
Mhm.
My God, like what they did with him,
Right?
right? You're right, right? Nog, same thing. Nog, same thing. Wow. Um, Quark and Oda's relationship, although it's the one that changed. In some ways, it changed the absolute least, but in other ways, it was one of the most interesting friendships, frenemies I've ever seen. It's really really good. I really dug no, like the dynamics with like Martok's development with Worf and with it again Martok with Nog also really cool.
Mhm.
Right?
Oh, I love the interaction between Martok and Nog, and the first time that Nog marches up to Martok to tell him how it is and doesn't get clobbered.
Well, no, no. It's favorite. It's like well, because Martok, it's about respect, right? You're either very
Mhm.
brave or very stupid, for Angie. And he goes, truthfully, sir, a little bit of both. And I like again an honest assessment. Jake's and Nog's relationship
Exactly.
is another great thing. Jake's and Nog's friendship.
Yeah.
Garrick. I mean, we haven't gotten to Garrick to like that cast. Top to the worst member of that whole cast is Ziel, Caldicott's daughter. And the fact that you may have had that reaction tells me I'm right.
They didn't play enough with her.
They again when you
She
have some,
was she had so much potential.
yeah, but again,
She and
but
her relationship with Kira and the fact that they ended up killing her was just
yeah, well, it made sense that they killed her. I
it made
I
sense in the context in which they wrote it, but with all the potential they could have made
oh
with
yeah,
that,
oh yeah, no, I think, and also one of the greatest villains of all time is Galdicott.
100% hands down.
Yeah,
Yes.
one of the greatest villains of all time. He was so good because he was always that monster, and no one, and
And he
the
truly
only
believed he was right, which adds a different dynamic. Now,
well,
does he believe that he all of his choices were right? No, but he believes that he is right.
I'm going to push back on that slightly. I actually think he doesn't really disagree with his choices. Here's what made Ducat scary, right? This is what made Ducat scary. He was so they allowed Ducat to be human. They didn't give him the mustache. Like season 7, they made him a little bit more of a mustache, but that his arc had completed. There was nowhere other place for him to go.
Mhm.
Um, but the thing was, his laughter. He had principles at least some of the time. He was human. You could understand. You can empathize with him a little bit. That's a scary villain. That's a really scary villain because that's the kind of guy that is so good at what he does that he can get you to believe that he's not the villain. And that's what made him terrifying.
Mhm.
When he finally his true colors were revealed, when him and Cisco had that little heart to heart when Cisco's all wounded, when his true colors came out, he was always that guy. But the thing about it was, this was when the writer said, we are not going to give you the comfort of seeing him as anything else but what he is. It is
Mhm.
true to who he was. Zial's death was the last catalyst to set that line up. She was always supposed to die. And I could have done a lot more to make her interesting in the meantime.
Mm.
But that's the, is it the only was it the only way that they had to get there? No. But I truly do think that she was the one character that was meant to die because it was the perfect way to send him off to the final edge. Right? Never mind the fact that yes, he tried to blow up the sun. Never mind, yes, he was one of the worst dictators you could possibly imagine, even before.
Mhm.
And you knew this when the series started.
Yeah.
What makes him scary is that you could actually find a way to empathize with that monster, and that's
Yeah.
the terrifying part about him. It's
He
not,
is,
yeah,
he's a villain that leaves his mark.
yeah,
And not every villain does that. A lot of them, like you said, they get all mustachy and just, oh, he's an evil guy. Let's move on.
yeah, and
And
like I
that's
said,
what they get you. But this
eh,
is one of my favorite reactions. I had somebody turn around and tell me that once they read a certain character's name on the page, um, that they knew everything was going downhill. That was Gul Dukat. The fact that I found somebody who recognized that in my books is kind of a huge pat on the back. But that was Gul Dukat. He was the one that, even if everything turned out the way you wanted it to, you knew it wasn't because Gul Dukat necessarily wanted it to, unless he allowed it, depending on what your situation, which
yep,
episode we're talking about. He walked into the room and there was like that hair standing up on the, standing up reaction. Like, what's going to happen now? What's the problem now? What's he going to do?
yeah. Well, there's him, and here's the thing, and the thing is, if you placed him to Wayun's the villain through and through the whole series. If you really want to be
Mhm.
blunt, Wayun's the face of the Minion. He's the true face of it. Even though the shapeshifters are, but I mean, he's the face of it for the series.
Mhm.
As villainous as Wayun was, he was nowhere near as insidious as Dukat was.
Nope.
Nowhere near as insidious, and that's a testament because Wayun was a good villain. Wayun was
Mhm.
also a good villain, right? But you knew he was the villain. Like you knew he was the villain,
Mhm.
right? Dukat, they let you have just enough to doubt him. That was what made it really good. And when the reveal was again season 7, he is that mustache twirling villain, but
Mhm.
his arc was done. There was nowhere else for him to go. He had to be that villain. His colors were revealed. There was no other
Right.
place where he could go. But up until that moment, up until that little conversation with Cisco and there was that you always wondered. But when the mask was down, that's who he is.
Mhm.
That was brilliant. It's one of the best. Like I said, and by the way, and I think the really scary thing is, this is how good DS9 is.
Mhm.
This is a guest star. This isn't even
Mhm.
a main cast. This is a guest star.
But he kept the cast on their toes.
Oh, sure he was. He's an important one. He's in quite a few of the
Mhm.
episodes. But
Mhm.
that's how good like that show was. The character development of just the guest cast is amazing, but the main cast too, all of them. Just like anyway,
I
I think
couldn't disagree one bit. I
yeah,
absolutely adored it. Every bit of it.
yeah, yeah. So if Jag, if you're still listening, yeah, this is why DS9 is the best Star Trek show. I'm okay with Next Generation. I like it, but yeah, DS9 is the best for that
I
reason.
absolutely love Next Generation, especially once they got their feet under them. I actually found myself going back and rewatching the first season because I realized there were some episodes I forgot or didn't watch, possibly. And now I remember why I forgot them.
They're just not that. They're just
Yeah,
not.
I
They're just
remember
not.
hearing the comment about, oh, Wesley's such a Mary Sue. And I went,
Is he?
I don't see that. He makes plenty of mistakes and he has some makeup. And then I saw season one. I went, oh, now I get it. Whether we're still trying to figure out what to do with this really smart kid, he got everything. Anytime he was in the series, in the story, he got everything he wanted.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
And not only did he get everything he wanted, but then he made things his the way. So, yeah, they really had to get their feet under them. But once they did, he was golden, and they did
Oh,
well. And
oh no.
they didn't have the long form story format the way DS9 did. Um, but I think they did it well. I think that they left enough. They certainly left enough plot holes that they could have gone back and made another 5 or 6 seasons just to fill the plot holes. But
But
it would have been fun watching.
well, they had the cast. The main, if you want to talk about like main cast, top to bottom, they're perfect. That one's they're damn near close.
Hmm.
The but like I said, if you for my money, it's DS9, just not just because of the storytelling, but just the
The
depth
whole
of characters.
package.
It's just the whole package is just incredible. But Next Generation, that Next Generation, there would not have been a DS9. Next Generation was an
Hmm.
incredible show, incredible cast. That cast is amazing. I think the evolution of what Star Trek could become was in large part that show.
Hmm.
That show. And if without that
Yeah.
show, there's nothing. I just think again, if you look at the like our era of Star Trek, like our era, Next Generation and DS9 are as good as it gets. And then Voyager is a step back in my opinion. And then and so is Enterprise. I like Enterprise, but I don't put it with the other two shows. It just does not measure to either of them. Um, that's right. It's just I like it a little bit more than I like Voyager, just because I got that feeling of again I like having a little growth in my characters, right? And like I said, and I'll say this to a Voyager and to any of the Voyager cast, it's not you, it's just what you had to deal with, right?
Hmm.
How they wanted to tell that story, you told it, and you did it the best you could,
Hmm.
but I find myself caring a lot less about a Voyager episode than I care than a Next Generation or DS9 or even
Hmm.
or with a few exceptions Enterprise, right? So yeah,
And I
that's
can
just me.
certainly see why.
Yeah,
I I know the first time through watching it, I didn't give all that much thought. I just enjoyed it. My second time through, I did have a little bit more perspective on it, I suppose. Of course, at that point, I was looking at it for research.
of course.
um, so you're going at it from a different point of view altogether when you're looking at, okay, so this is what was set up here, and I'm trying to remember how they resolved it. Is this a way that I could apply to what I've done? Oh, it's not. Oh, okay. But you can't figure that out. That's why you go watch it again for that when you're coming at it from that perspective. Um, and you're right. At that point, it's very hard to deny that they should have added growth to characters like Harry Kim and they, to look at the Bashir and um,
O'Brien.
thank you. My brain was trying to call him O'Reilly. I'm like, no. Anyway, the Bashir O'Brien relationship, to see that and how solid that is, and how you could not see them as not being friends ever. That should have been with well done with the Belana Taurus and Tom Paris wedding and together. They should have done that kind of solid together, and those are characters that it could have been done with, and
Mhm.
it would have been fun to watch that growth because
Even
they were so dynamically not that either one of them.
and also like I look at Neelix and Tupac, right? In concept, it's a good idea. The reality of the situation is, I thought, mm, again, same thing. The development of that
Mhm.
wasn't quite what I would have liked. But again, it's easy to nitpick. Again, it's a show with a very different goal than DS9, and that's the other thing too. And again, they did some things well. Like
Yeah.
I think, and like again, Jerry Ryan is 7 to 9. The Borg, how they look. Oh well, okay. Until they turned the Borg into the run of the mill monsters of the week, until they turned them into that, they did tell some compelling Borg stories. They did, right? And they were able to tell a couple of them that the next generation couldn't because of Seven, which I think is really, really cool. I didn't like the end goal of when they became the Borg never should feel like a run of the mill monster. They should feel like the
No.
dead. They should feel like an inevitable zombie monster, the apocalypse, because they basically are cybernetic zombies. So you just you want that feeling. But season 5, great stuff. Season 4, like with dealing with her healing, dealing with when they met that collective that wasn't the Borg but could become like them. I thought, okay, they are talking about some really cool things. Like I said, I don't. Okay, I dislike Voyager of all the Star Trek. It's the one I dislike the most, but I don't hate it. I just think for me, it's just about potential and what they had and what they could have done and what they chose to do, and I just get sad.
Yeah.
I just get sad
Because you
right
can see the potential. You can
yeah
see where they had one of the best starts
oh
any
yeah
series has ever had.
oh yeah flying
And
close
then they just kind of stopped
yeah and it hurt
until Cass left.
yeah. And Cass, and this is a knock to Gentleman Liam as well. Cass was an interesting idea as a character. A 7-year, again, a character with a deliberate arc that you could build. 7 years. She changes and evolves as it goes. She becomes an old woman. It's like that's an interesting idea. Do they extend her life? Can they do that? Will she want to extend her life? There's a lot of interesting things you can do with that. Nope.
And what they ultimately did wasn't bad,
No,
but it did limit. It did.
they might not. Again, this is one of those things where they might not have had, and this is where I will give them a benefit of the doubt. When an actor leaves the show, there's a lot that goes into that, and you have to understand that when that does happen, that it's going to force some course corrections. It has to, because there's no other way around it. And since television is a living, breathing entity, you're going to have to make sometimes the best choices with the hand you're dealt. So I'm a little bit more forgiving on that one, because I don't know what Jennifer Leon's situation was. Maybe she decided she wanted to leave the show for her own reasons, and so she did. So her arc was interrupted, right? So I can't really say that. So in that particular case, I can't say, because, right? Same like going back with the Ezri Jadzia thing. Same thing. Terry Farrell made a decision to leave the show. That was her decision. Maybe she didn't want to, but maybe it was circumstances. But whatever reasons, she decided to leave. Nicole Dubois, Ezri Dax, had to come in. Considering everything else that was on their plate, they had to play their hand the best they could, which meant that some things had to be rushed because there was you didn't have the time. You just didn't. You knew that this was going to be the last season, so you want to get as much in as possible. Same thing. Like, so you have those imperfect moments in those. Babylon 5 had that problem too. Andrew
I never got into Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 and DS9.
No. No, it was Babylon 5 that I got a little bit into, but not nearly like I did Star Trek. I was thinking of the relaunch of with the Cylons and
Don't know.
Battlestar Galactica. That was the
Okay,
one I was
yeah,
thinking of.
no.
That was the one I didn't really get into. I tried.
So Babylon 5 was the first novel on television. Before DS9, before Buffy, before any, it was Babylon 5. Babylon 5 had to deal with the fact that it was a low budget show, and that the actors would occasionally, like a couple actors would occasionally leave. Michael O'Hare left in the end of season 1. He was the original captain of the ship, and they had to replace him with Bruce Boxleitner, who's a great replacement. But so that changed the arc. And they had Claudia Christian, who played Ivanova for 4 or 5 seasons, and in the 5th season she was gone. It opened the door for Tracy Scoggins to take over. But the thing is, these are just like when you are dealing with television, there is a living, breathing entity aspect to it. To get a good television show to work and work for an extended period of time, heck, even Star Trek Next Generation, Denise Crosby, Tasha Yar. One of the reasons the show grew, ironically, was because she left. And she's a great actress, by the way. This isn't even a knock to her. But what would,
She made the choice to leave. She
yeah,
was, as
yeah.
a matter of fact, fun story that I remember hearing is that Sturtis, she had been walking around with the producers, kind of avoiding her for weeks. And then Denise Crosby walked into the office and came back out, and they stopped avoiding her. She knew pretty quick after realizing that they were going to lose Tasha that if they hadn't been losing Tasha, she was the one on the chopping block.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that would have made quite a different show.
Oh, very much so. Like honestly, okay, this is okay. I want you to think about this, okay? If Tasha, Jordy, and Worf were on the bridge when the show started, would Worf ever become tactical? And would we have gotten all the arc stuff with Worf if Yar had stayed? How about LaForge? Right? How about LaForge?
Mhm,
Same thing.
mhm,
So right, it was for whatever reason, for like the show found its fit, and I don't really, again, it's not a blame thing, right? It forced the show to create a course correction. In that
mhm,
case, it was for the better. It was one of
mhm,
those things. Maybe they just fluked into it. You look at a lot of shows though. If an actor's okay, I'll give you another example. Earth Final Conflict. Okay, that show, it was a Gene Roddenberry concept that could have been really good. I get the feeling, considering the number of casts that left the show, that there was some really foul in the studio, somewhere, right? Because nobody stayed on that show, like nobody, right?
mhm,
The villain from season one, he's the only constant in every season. That's it. Just
mhm.
one cast member stayed the entire series.
Ooh,
So when you have that as a problem, if you're a writer of that show, what do you do? Because
yeah.
right? Because you don't have a consistent protagonist the whole way through now,
Mhm,
right? You have an antagonist, but what good is an antagonist without a protagonist? And
yeah.
that's why your final conflict, especially if you watch the first season, has so much potential. But when you get to season two, you're like, okay, that kind of no, you're okay with season two. By the time you're at season four, you're not so okay with it because at that point the whole cast
Yeah.
been
It's
upheaval.
hard to hold on to a series. Hard to hold on to any show, but series in general, books and and TV and movies, if they're changing the cast that drastically
Yeah,
constantly,
I
you don't
mean,
have the same connections. Those things change each time, and you're stuck with trying to relate to a new set of characters. So
yeah,
yeah,
but
I can.
that's part of it. And then the other thing too is depending on how many pieces get shattered, what's the story we're telling now? Because you
Yeah.
don't now you don't know, right?
Mhm,
So it's like, okay, now what do we do? That's why, like, again, I'm a little bit more forgiving of Earth's Final Conflict because it's just like, well, I don't really think it's a great show, but I also don't necessarily blame anybody in front of the camera for that either because it's
mhm.
like,
What's causing all of you to change? Leave.
yes, yeah, exactly. That's
Mhm.
that's what that's telling me. My friend, we have gone 2.5 hours and we could keep going.
Did we?
I'm good at this. I'm good at this.
Indeed.
It's yeah. So we probably now let's. So you got to come back. Well, so I'll give you when we get off the air. I'll give you the episode. You can watch the entire thing. I do think it's funny that you and I and Jag and everybody I've asked this question to say that it's Cisco and Picard. Everybody says it. It's Cisco and Picard. Than everybody
Mhm,
else. Right? So, but
mhm.
what's your latest book release? And how can people find you?
My latest book release is actually I'm working on the Fight on the Fringe series. It's a short story series written during 31 days, which is a challenge I do twice a year. Write a short story every day for a month,
Hmm.
and then I spend the following month cleaning it up and publishing it. So it's really a series of stories. They're the Fight on the Fringe, and they're short stories about an assassin and a hacker that realize the organization that created them isn't quite as noble as they were roped into believing.
Ah.
And their goal is to change things.
Oh, that could be interesting. That could be
Yeah,
anyway.
it has been a lot of fun watching them recruit their team and bring their people together. And yeah, you should be getting another Fight on the Fringe edition here next week, as a matter of fact, as they
Nice.
are be uh in the process of the story is gonna they're kind of pseudo episodic right now. They're just a bunch of collection of short stories telling you about what they're doing. The longer stories will come out next year. But yeah, this is setting up and it's a lot of fun. And like I have a very resourceful assassin that gets into just about any situation and gets herself out of it. I have a hacker that really upsets people, and people consistently like to challenge themselves against her, and they really don't like the outcome.
You
I
know,
wouldn't
next,
call they run into problems. They get I mean, I think my hackers had a knife to her throat a couple of times. She's not a fighting expert. It's kind of funny how that seems to happen, but she is a tech expert. It's amazing how quickly she finds a way out of things.
sounds good. How can people find you?
Every day on Twitch, well, Monday through Friday on Twitch as the lady writes, and anywhere else, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, you name it, I'm the lady writes. You did.
Trained
Perfect.
professional, ladies and gentlemen. I almost know what I'm doing, but don't tell anybody. Right? I almost know what I'm doing. It's like I've done this before or something. I don't know. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is an amazing conversation with Catrina Taylor. I met her. I met her at Conduit, and I'll be doing something really special there. This is my link to my advertising services. I will put words, pictures, sounds, or videos to your projects or to yourselves. I will help you brand so you can tell your best story to the world. You can go check out my page now and actually take a look at all this stuff for more information. And that is my week, folks. I'm going to be back on Independence Day early Independence Day. David Whalian is coming back for more on. It'll be an early day, and then I got a freelance copywriter on the following day, and then I got some pretty cool other guests coming up for the rest of the week. It's going to be a lot of fun. But to everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'm going to do this such a way so this goes off at exactly 2 minutes and 38 seconds, or 38 minutes, 2 hours, 38 minutes and 0 seconds. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you next time.